Sometimes I wonder how
Actually, you know what? While you're roaming, I was going to do a reading, but I prefer reading during a firefight if that sounds a bit too toxically masculine. It's been a fun weekend for that. Jacob, I saw The Odyssey.
I heard. So you have been yourself on the Odyssey.
I've been there and back again, as it were. Hi, I'm Henry.
Or Jacob.
And we're playing Freedom Fighters here on Technopoverty while working through Paulo Freire's Pedagogy of the Oppressed. For those who may be checking us out for the first time, I was about to say Pedagogy of the Oppressed. Technopoverty is an excuse to play video games and read books, bounce the two off each other with you, the chat, and you know, just talk about what's going on with the culture, what the readings are making us feel about the art, what the art is making us feel about the current moment, and we just have fun time with our little community here. Welcome Ja, welcome L-Man. I see that you were posting in here as the Federal Ghoul. I see 3-2s here. I know we got some other regulars. It seems we got five or four people in the chat, according to what I'm seeing on our Twitch stats, but yeah. Let's get to the freedom fight. Maybe once a firefight busts out, I'll talk a bit more. But yeah, this past weekend we watched No Other Land on the Discord, and then I went and saw The Odyssey. So to talk about pacts of hospitality broken, violated, man being monster against his fellow man, there was a lot to think about this weekend in regards to that. And I mean, let's be honest, Freedom Fighters here is the imagination of just being a monster for revolution. It's not about political reform, it's about getting a gun and showing those fuckers. Jacob, how has showing those fuckers been?
You know, gratifying. Gratifying.
Yeah, well, it's because of like the way I guess you could say it channels like the permissible violence and communicates what's acceptable to enjoy. I've been thinking about this in regards to the discourse around the Odyssey, because Elon Musk and like the general chud reaction on Twitter from the outset just being like, this is gonna be bad. And then this past weekend seeing like Ben Shapiro even be like, you know what, even though there's a trans person in there, I can't deny it's good.
These people are just so fucking stupid. Christopher Nolan can't make a good movie except every fucking
Except
movie
every time he's made a
movie.
He made a box office hit out of Oppenheimer.
Okay, just like
subject matter like no studio would really gamble on if it wasn't Christopher Nolan.
Yeah, man, it's just, I don't know, it's very dumb. Just like lukewarm takes from fucking wet rags. You're like, wow, incredible. A good movie was good, but
yeah,
made by a good filmmaker, I am shocked.
I will even say I liked how, the thing about The Odyssey, and the thing is, Nolan, I'm not gonna say it's an excellent film. I think it has some issues, but like the dialogue says 5 things where it maybe just needs to say 3, if I can sum it up in whole. Mm-hmm. Although I realize, and this is kind of a charming aspect to it, I was wondering why everyone was so shouty. And then upon realizing, like, this is the first film completely shot in IMAX, like, not just the action scenes, but the whole thing, like, IMAX cameras are loud. There's there's a story as well because of the size of the cameras. Matt Damon was talking about, like, in certain, like, conversational scenes, they would have to rig up mirrors to see around the IMAX cameras. The movie is kind of marred with the limitations of that, but it's kind of in a fun, charming, kind of goofy way. Like, oh yeah, Nolan was really swinging for it.
Dude, fuck yeah.
Doesn't care if he embarrasses his ass a little with the eye lines looking kind of goofy at times and everybody shouting the law of Zeus every scene.
Fuck, that's funny.
Yeah, I'll just say, like, so in Homeric myth, in like that Homeric prose, there's epitaphs and there's rejoinders and kind of like everybody has phrases and associations with their names. They say the law of Zeus so many damn times in this movie, and like, I get why each book of the Odyssey, given the way that the oral tradition was, they'd say like a book or two each night. I get why each book would maybe say the phrase once, but in a 3-hour movie, you don't have to say it every 12 minutes. Like, you don't have to do that.
Like, you get it the first couple times.
I know maybe once a stream I'll bring up William S. Burroughs' Sex That Passes the Censor quote, but I'm not doing it every 3 minutes. Ja, from what I understand, they do.
Yeah, what school we talked about? High school?
Yeah, I definitely also took a humanities class in college where we read it, but I remember reading it in about like freshman or 10th grade English, if I recall correctly. And watching the Armand Asante adaptation. We're going to get to Pedagogy of the Oppressed at some point, folks, I swear. I'm just a little fresh on the brain with the Odyssey thinking about it. And I am going to root this back to pedagogy because to bring up the criticisms, complaints, did Nolan get it or not, I'm going to say he did get it. Like, he says the same thing 5 times, but you can source in Homer where that idea is coming from, and it makes sense. And none of it's like a total bastardization or misunderstanding of the Odyssey. I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed especially what happened with Agamemnon here in this story. He's like a very Darth Vader presence. If there's one reason to see in theaters, it's so that you really soak in like the way Agamemnon works visually in this film. Agamemnon's myth is a brutal homecoming in which he comes back and his wife kills him. That's not just in the Odyssey. There's a whole trilogy of plays the Oresteia set up about that. But Agamemnon's a bastard in history. Like, he's not like a revised grimdark character who's only recently been seen this way. He's always been kind of seen this way. There's a reason in Frank Herbert's Dune, it's Agamemnon he's like linking House Atreides to, which I also think it's House Atreides kind of bullshitting, because like, you're so far in the fucking future in Dune with space travel, so is Shada's Pass, like, you can't actually trace yourself back to like the ancient Greeks. And besides, Agamemnon's a fictional character either way. I think it's just House Atreides trying to get prestige in its own historical way. And I think Herbert's doing something different with that. But like, Herbert's using Agamemnon because Agamemnon is kind of a bastard. He sacrifices his daughter for the war, quite literally. But so Agamemnon, as like this evil father willing to kill his own daughter, rushing home without contemplation, like benefiting from the war without thinking about it, like he's in complete parallel to Odysseus in the movie, who's, he's contemplating like, what did the Trojan horse mean? Like that violation of hospitality. And like, that is what the Odyssey is about. It's about like, Odysseus arrogantly violates this, this norm of hospitality, and then the rest of the play is, the rest of the story is him negotiating and conversing with people and getting back home through like figuring out like, hey, can I talk to this person? Do they share common ideas with me? Or are they a monster? Will they slaughter me the first chance they get? And that aspect's really fun and present in the movie.
Yeah.
I said this during the pre-roll, but the Odyssey is such a well-tread story, I can't really spoil it, and it is mostly the haptics of this thing that are inescapable and just so fun to breathe in. The Circe scene, Jacob, I think you'd really enjoy. The transformation stuff, I won't say much about it, because it is amazing in the way it is edited. But I bring up all that hospitality stuff and all that communication stuff because, as Lux has said before on this stream, I think while we were playing Look Outside and talking about the way that game deals with conversation, Odysseus is a bard. Like, for people who think he's like some macho dude, like in the play, when he's like with the Phoenicians that are like, we can tell you're Odysseus because every time we mention the Trojan War, you break down and start crying. Like he's PTSD scarred in that way.
Dang.
Yeah. When you're first introduced to Odysseus, he's on the beach crying. Dude's always falling apart.
He's just a sad boy. if this ends into that kind of end.
Yeah, the introduction of nobody. Yeah, Ja, and like the source, so like, this is another thing too, it's like the things I'm dissatisfied with, I see why they're not present in this version because the overall intent still works, and like Nolan makes clear his concerns.
Take them down, all of you.
And I think his concerns are aligned with like the concerns of the poem.
Eliminate them. Destroy that obstacle. Get them.
But when we last left off in Pedagogy of the Oppressed, Freire was talking about how a literacy program or a political program seeking to communicate and discover the concerns of the locals and develop a local political organization or plan of action. You know, they were talking, he calls it investigators, like what investigators can do. And the first thing he talks about is figuring out a plan on the ground for the material reality of the people locally. Not like coming in and prescribing any kind of top-down order, but figuring out from the ground up what people need and where. And this has always been a concern. Again, to talk about the Odyssey, like Odysseus is a bard, that book is a series of conversations in which he's negotiating, you know, what is the world? What am I coming back to? I've been out of it for 20 years. 10 years at war, 10 years lost.
Bad. Let's go, little boys.
Sadly, one of the parts I wish were in the movie that was not is the bum fights. There are bum fights in the poem.
What?
They get across the same idea, but it's because, so Ja, to bring up how literal or easy it is to understand the poem, it's an easy to understand poem, especially if, from what I understand, Nolan was working off the Emily Wilson translation, which seeks to be as kind of in iambic pentameter, but legible in English and direct and to the point as like the basic Greek version is. But yeah, there's a part near the end of the story where the suitors are forcing two bums to fight, and Penelope comes in and breaks up the whole thing, and she has a really good bit where she's talking about how like a kingdom's only as good as like how it treats its lowest. Mm-hmm. What up, Captain Quasar?
Oh damn. Killed myself.
Roundabout way of saying woke.
Hell yeah, oh man. Wishbone was prime entertainment. Also can't wait for that documentary about that little dog.
Is there a documentary on Wishbone coming out?
Yeah, it's gonna be coming out soon. I'm very excited.
Let's get back to the Freire. Or actually, now that you're in a battle, I had my phone, and I had my phone for a reason. Well, I figured out where my phone is, found it. Just a heads up, once we finish the Freire, which we might do tonight, or maybe Thursday. Next book up is Black Flame by Gretchen Felker-Martin. I'll probably be playing Pipistrello and the Cursed Yo-Yo as soon as I'm done with the Freire, and I'll be discussing the Gretchen during that. Once we're done with Gretchen's book, we're going to be moving on to The Lathe of Heaven by Ursula K. Le Guin. Again, these are all books under 200 pages. Our aim with this Summer Scramble program is to shotgun a bunch of short stuff.
Hell yeah, we love that.
And right when I want to read, the projector.
Pull out, squad. Join up. I'm not your huckleberry.
You're not my Huckleberry?
Follow me. Let's do it. Eliminate. Move in.
Gang, I was fumbling around with the audio as well, so let me know if nothing's audible on stream. I think I figured it all out for better post control.
You'll be fine. Right. Let's go. Aboard. Come on.
I have no idea about Alf at all, Ja. Feel free to send us the essay if it's a video. It was a video you're talking about, right? Yeah, a vid about Alf.
Oh, hell yeah, that sounds awesome.
Also, Captain Quasar, just saw your Discord message. I'll check it out in a moment.
Oh, my boys, me and the boys.
This is Ulysses by Alfred Lord Tennyson. That's right, Ulysses by Alfred Lord Tennyson. It little profits that an idle king, by his still hearth, among these barren crags, matched with an aged wife, I mere and dole out unequal laws unto a savage race, that hoard and sleep and feed and know not me. I cannot rest from travel. I will drink life to the lees. All times I've enjoyed greatly, I've suffered greatly, both with those that loved me, alone, on shore, and when through scuttling drifts the rainy Hades vexed the dim sea. I am become a name, for always roaming with a hungry heart, much have I seen and known. Cities of men and manners, climates, councils, governments, myself not least, but honored of them all, and drunk the light of battle with my peers far in the ringing plains of windy Troy. I am part of all that I have met, yet all experience is an arch where through gleams an untraveled world whose margin fades forever and forever when I move. How dull is it to pause, to make an end, to rust unburnished, not to shine in use, as though to breathe were life, life piled on life were all too little, and of one to me little remains. But every hour is saved from that eternal silence, something more, a bringer of new things. And vile it were for some of these suns to store and hoard myself, and this gray spirit yearning in desire to follow knowledge like a sinking star, beyond the utmost bound of human thought. This is my son, my own Telemachus, to whom I leave the scepter in the isle, well loved of me, discerning to fulfill this labor by slow prudence to make mild a rugged people, and through soft degrees subdue them to the useful and the good. Most blameless is he, centered in the sphere of common duties, decent not to fail in offices of tenderness, and pay me adoration to my household gods when I am gone. He works his work, I mine. There lies the port. The vessel puffs her sail. There gloom the dark, broad seas. My mariners, souls that have toiled and wrought and thought with me, that ever with a frolic welcome took the thunder and the sunshine, and opposed free hearts, free foreheads. You and I are old. Old age hath yet his honor and his toil. Death closes all, but something ere the end, some work of noble note may yet be done, not unbecoming men that strove with gods. The lights begin to twinkle from the rocks. The long day wanes. The slow moon climbs. The deep moans round with many voices. Come, my friends. 'Tis not too late we seek a newer world. Push off, and sitting well in order, smite the sounding furrows. For my purpose holds to sail beyond the sunset, and the baths of all the western stars until I die. It may be that the gulfs will wash us down. It may be we will touch the happy isles and see the great Achilles whom we knew. Though much is taken, much abides. And though we are not now that strength which in old days moved earth and heaven, that which we are, we are. One equal temper of heroic hearts, made weak by time and fate, but strong in will, to strive, to seek, to find, and not to yield. That was Ulysses by Alfred Lord Tennyson. It brings to mind just this idea of not yielding. That last bit always got me. I think that's one of the ways this poem really cracked me when I didn't know all the illusion stuff when I first read it, because the first 2/3 of this heavy Homeric lore, but that last bit, though much is taken, much abides, and though we are not now that strength which in old days moved earth and heaven, that which we are, one equal temper of heroic hearts, made weak by time and fate, but among in will, to strive, to seek, to find, and not to yield. Just the way that hits like a diamond on not giving up and striving, I think makes it a worthy poem. I don't know. It's aesthetically cool. It feels nice. It's inspiring in times of darkness.
Yay. Oh, Captain Quasar, you have turtles?
Feed those turtles, Captain Quasar.
Hit their position. Come on.
Yeah, oh man, I have blown out the projector with dust, with the compressed air before.
Oh, yeah.
It seems to be something, I think something's just a little loose, because usually with a quick adjustment to the horizontal plane, it'll shut up.
Take them out. Do it. You got it.
Oh, I didn't know Alf was like hardcore racist. Damn. What a bastard.
Wait, really? I was not a big Alf head, I guess.
All right. Speaking of not yielding, Jacob is continuing on, and we're going to continue on with the Freire. We've been through the fields of theory, and now we're talking about how the investigators can apply and apprehend what is going on and facilitate education. Remember, we're not about bucket education here. It's not about becoming a vessel that just banks a lot of keywords. It's about the conversational nature, the back and forth, the teacher teaching the students teaching the teacher, that kind of a thing. It is with the apprehension of the complex of contradictions that the second stage of the investigation begins. Always acting as a team, the investigators will select some of these contradictions to develop the codifications to be used in the thematic investigation. Since the codifications, sketches or photographs, are the objects which mediate the decoders in their critical analysis, the preparation of these codifications must be guided by certain principles other than the usual ones for making visual aids. I do think the Odyssey also does something interesting in which a lot of the visual additions, because they're visual, they're like implicit in the text, but like not mentioned by Homer. And there's kind of an interesting button at the end of the movie where Odysseus mentions something about like, we'll be remembered in song, but it'll forget our failures, something along those lines, where I think there's kind of a commentary on the whole, what, like just we'll aestheticize this. I think it's Nolan preemptively getting at those dudes who are going to be like, this isn't my Odysseus.
Bring it on. Eliminate target.
Because, you know, in the, as Walter Benjamin would call it, like the aestheticizing distance of making that archaic masculine Odysseus that may not gel with Christopher Nolan's vision, you're doing the stupid Fash thing. You're making a bad map. The first requirement is that these codifications must necessarily represent situations familiar to the individuals whose thematics are being examined, so they can easily recognize the situations and thus their own relation to them. It is inadmissible, whether during the process of investigation or in the following stage, when the meaningful thematics are presented as a program content, to present picture of reality unfamiliar to the participants. The latter procedure, although dialectical, because individuals analyzing an unfamiliar reality could compare it with their own and discover the limitations of each, cannot precede the more basic one dictated by the participant's state of submersion, that is, the process by which individuals analyzing their own reality become aware of their prior distorted perceptions and thereby come to have a new perception of that reality. An equally fundamental requirement for the preparation of the codifications is that their thematic nucleus be neither overly explicit nor overly enigmatic. The former may degenerate into mere propaganda with no real decoding to be done beyond stating the obviously predetermined content. The latter runs the risk of appearing to be a puzzle or a guessing game. Since they represent existential situations, the codifications should be simple in their complexity and offer various decoding possibilities in order to avoid the brainwashing tendencies of propaganda. Codifications are not slogans. They are cognizable objects, challenges towards which the critical reflection of the decoders should be directed. There you go, Ja. I guess this kind of follows up on what we were feeling about his protest against propaganda earlier on. I think for Freire, what we were considering propaganda might just categorically be a different thing, since it's directing people towards like deeper sources. instead of just telling them, don't think about it, just internalize this maxim.
Defend this area. Team, regroup. Squad. This way.
In order to offer various possibilities of analysis in the decoding process, the codification should be organized as a thematic fan. As the decoders reflect on the codifications, the codification should open up the direction of other themes. This opening up, which does not occur if the thematic content is either too explicit or too enigmatic, is indispensable to the perception of the dialectical relations to which exist between the themes and their opposites. Accordingly, the codifications reflecting an existential situation must objectively constitute a totality. Its elements must interact in the makeup of the whole. Getting Jameson there with like cognitive mapping. In the process of decoding, the participants externalize their thematics and thereby make explicit their real consciousness of the world. As they do this, they begin to see how they themselves acted while actually experiencing the situation they are now analyzing, and thus reach a perception of their previous perception. By achieving this awareness, they come to perceive reality differently. By broadening the horizon of their perception, they discover more easily their background awareness in the dialectical relations between the two dimensions of reality. By stimulating perception of the previous perception and knowledge of the previous knowledge, decoding stimulates the appearance of a new perception and a new development of new knowledge. The new perception and knowledge are systematically continued with an inauguration of the educational plan, which transforms the untested feasibility into testing action, as potential consciousness supersedes real consciousness. Preparing the codifications further requires that insofar as possible they should represent contradictions inclusive of others which constitute the system of contradictions of the area under study. As each of these inclusive codifications is prepared, the other contradictions contained therein should also be codified. The decoding of the former will be dialectically clarified by the decoding of the latter. In this connection, a very valuable contribution to our method has been made by Gabriel Bode, a young Chilean civil servant in one of the most significant Chilean governmental institutions, the Instituto de Desarrollo Agropecuario, INDAP. During his use of this method in the post-literacy stage, Bode observed that the peasants became interested in the discussion only when the codification related directly to their felt needs. Any deviation in the codification, as well as any attempt by the educator to guide the decoding discussion into other areas, produced silence and indifference. On the other hand, he observed that even when the codification centered on their felt needs, the peasants could not manage to concentrate systematically on the discussion, which often digressed to the point of never reaching a synthesis. Also, they almost never perceived the relationship of their felt needs to the direct and indirect causes of their needs. One might say that they failed to perceive the untested feasibility lying beyond the limit situations which engendered their needs. Bode then decided to experiment with the simultaneous projection of different situations. In this technique lies the value of his contribution. Initially, he projects a very simple codification of an existential situation. He terms his first codification essential. It represents the basic nucleus and opens up into a thematic fan of extending auxiliary codifications. After the essential codification is decoded, the educator maintains its projected image as a reference for the participants and successively projects alongside the auxiliary codifications. By means of the latter, which are directly related to the essential codification, he sustains the vivid interest of the participants, who were thereby enabled to reach a synthesis. The great achievement of Gabriel Bode is that, by means of the dialectics between the essential and the auxiliary codifications, he has managed to communicate to the participants a sense of totality. Individuals who were submerged in reality, merely feeling their needs, emerge from reality and perceive the causes of their needs. In this way, they can go beyond the level of real consciousness to that of potential consciousness much more rapidly. Once the codifications have been prepared and all their possible thematic facets have been studied by the interdisciplinary team, the investigators begin the third stage of the investigation by returning to the area to initiate decoding dialogues in the thematic investigation circles. These discussions, which decode the material prepared in the preceding stage, are taped for subsequent analysis by the interdisciplinary team. In addition to the investigator acting as a decoding coordinator, 2 other specialists, a psychologist and a sociologist, attend the meetings. Their task is to note and record the significant and apparently insignificant reactions of the decoders. During the decoding process, the coordinator must not only listen to the individuals, but must challenge them, posing as problems both the codified existential situation and their own answers. Due to the cathartic force of methodology, the participants of the thematic investigation circles externalize a series of sentiments and opinions about themselves, the world, and others that perhaps they would not express under different circumstances. In one of the thematic investigations carried out in Santiago, a group of tenement residents discussed a scene showing a drunken man walking on the street and three young men conversing on the corner. The group participants commented that the only one there who is productive and useful to this country is the Seuss, who is returning home after working all day for low wages, and who is worried about his family because he can't take care of their needs. He's the only worker. He's a decent worker and a Seuss like us. The investigator had intended to study the aspects of alcoholism. He probably would not have elicited the above responses if he had presented the participants with a questionnaire he had elaborated himself. If asked directly, they might even have denied ever taking a drink themselves. But in their comments on the codification of the existential situation they could recognize, and in which they could recognize themselves, they said what they really felt. This gets back to Jameson again when he talks about why cognitive mapping is an aesthetic issue, not a social sciences issue, because through aesthetics, the macro becomes personal to the individual, and they can imagine themselves in a role, and they can see themselves in a place. Jacob was just a plumber the other day, and now here he is, freeing America from the Russians? The Russians, right?
Russians, the Soviets.
The Soviets.
No.
This does bring to mind the question, why so much contemporary narrative is so heavily genre leaning, or even when it's realistic leaning, it is out of time. What is so scary about articulating the current moment in a visual format? I mean, I love the Odyssey. The Odyssey is commenting on the contemporary. But, I mean, what else is coming out this year? We got, what, Avengers Doomsday? Which looks like just a PS2 cutscene.
GTA 6.
GTA 6. Yeah, GTA 6, is GTA 6 in the contemporary? Like, you're like a contemporary, like, person?
Yes.
Yeah, you have, like, the internet, you're like an influencer type or something, right? Yeah. Right, because I remember hearing right-wingers bitching about that.
They're gonna cry about everything.
Even though, like, you play a criminal in every game?
Yeah, dude, like, they're just like, I don't know, man. There's just nothing. It's a nothing conversation.
Captain Quasar, I was just not, there's nothing in the trailer that made me go, like, interesting or wow or curious. Like, so Thor was gonna hit him with hammer, then the bad guy stopped the hammer. Like, it's the most obvious power scaling thing. I'm going... It just, I see so many posts that are like fan theories mapping things out, and then like, I feel it's the case of like, I think Disney intentionally leaks information for PR.
To keep the conversation.
And because I do see the Marvel fan theories where they're like, oh wow, they got it correct, and it's like, well yeah, because the studio just like leaked you crumbs literally like 12 months in the lead up to the trailer because they needed people to talk about it, because these things are engineered to be talked about on Reddit. Yeah, Captain Quasar. There was like, look who's back, and like, wow, Doctor Doom.
Watch for activity. Everybody, get down here. I'll find them. Wipe them out.
It really is kind of depressing to me too, how, so for instance, the discourse. Just conversations over the Odyssey focusing so heavily on like the right wing, left wing, like Chud's enjoying, I'm enjoying it despite the Chud's kind of like fetishization of the object more than like looking at the content of the object. All like, there's so much fun content to look at within the object itself. Yeah, Goku versus Superman, exactly. It's as rubber bandy. I do want to suggest, if you are a fan of cape stuff, what you can do and save way more time instead of gawking over content for hours online. If you just want to spend like maybe 20 minutes a month on something fun, go down to your local comic shop and start reading Doom Quest. It's a little series Ryan North started writing. It's a Doctor Doom centered series where it's Quantum Leap, Jacob, with Doctor Doom. Just to kind of give a heads up on what the series is about, minor spoilers, but it's too fun for this to not make you want to read it more.
Damn it, killed myself.
Doctor Doom's gonna do some time machine bullshit. He's gonna put his brain in some important person in the past. At the last moment, Reed Richards like switches a thing, and he ends up just like in the brain of some random dude on the Titanic.
Okay.
Yeah, and so he's stuck in a time loop, and he's just like, well, I got to stop the Titanic from sinking. And it's like one of those great instances where, like, yeah, if you remove Reed Richards from the equation, you can make Doctor Doom the protagonist of something, and he's kind of goofy and fun.
Yeah.
And it's exactly that. It's Quantum Leap. I won't say how he resolves the whole Titanic issue, but there's a fun cliffhanger at the end. He's in George Washington's body. I don't even think it's a heavy spoiler because the cover to the next issue is him crossing the Delaware.
Yeah. That's pretty good.
So there's a fun little piece of superhero cheese going on with Doctor Doom doing a quantum leap in his own little mini series written by Ryan North. It's genuinely clever and fun, and again, like if you just read that, it takes maybe 20 minutes of your month in its entirety, 60 if you really like the issue and you want to reread it and peel over it. What I'm saying is, you don't have to go on forums and get in fights over if RDJ is going to do a good job or not. Plot twist, he's not going to do a good job. You should just free up those hours for other things in your life, is what I'm saying. Recognize how much the Disney vampire has its hooks in you. I'm begging you.
Yeah.
There are two important aspects to these declarations. On the one hand, they verbalize the connection between earning low wages, feeling exploited, and getting drunk. Oh, Marty. Go defend the household.
Yeah.
Go scout. Detect and report. It's gotta happen. Destroy. Take them out. I can't see him.
Why Steven Seagal?
You heard me. Yes, sir. Take this. You'll be fine.
On the one hand, they verbalize the connection between earning low wages, feeling exploited, and getting drunk. Getting drunk as a flight from reality, as an attempt to overcome the frustration of inaction, as an ultimately self-destructive solution. On the other hand, they manifest the need to rate the drunkard highly. He's the only one useful to his country because he works, while the others only gab. After praising the drunkard, the participants then identified themselves with him as workers who also drank. Decent workers. In contrast, imagine the failure of a moralistic educator, sermonizing against alcoholism and presenting as an example of virtue something from which these men is not a manifestation of virtue. In this and other cases, the only sound procedure is the Conscienzakao of the situation, which should be attempted from the start of the thematic investigation. Obviously, Conscienzakao does not stop at the level of mere subjective perception of a situation, but through action prepares men for struggle against the obstacles to their humanization. A conscious narrative understanding of these people's lives, the empathy and the sympathy. In another experience, this time with peasants, this is why learn to code didn't work. This is why the Obama-era Rust Belt strategy got us Trumpism, guys. If I were to editorialize reality for a moment. In another experience, this time with peasants, I observed the unchanging motif during an entire discussion of a situation depicting work in the fields was the demand for an increase in wages and the necessity of joining together to create a union to obtain this particular demand. 3 situations were discussed during the session, and the motif was always the same. Now imagine an educator who has organized his educational program for these men, consisting of reading wholesome text in which one learns that the water is in the well. But precisely this type of thing happens all the time in both education and politics, because it is not realized that the dialogical nature of education begins with thematic investigation. Once the decoding in the circles has been completed, the last stage of the investigation begins, as the investigators undertake a systematic interdisciplinary study of their findings. Listening to the tapes recorded during the decoding sessions and studying the notes taken by the psychologists and sociologists, the investigators begin to list the themes explicit or implicit in the affirmations made during the sessions. These themes should be classified according to the various social sciences. Classification does not mean that when the program is elaborated, the themes will be seen as belonging to isolated categories, but only that a theme is viewed in a specific manner by each of the social sciences to which it is related. The theme of development, for example, is especially appropriate to the field of economics, but not exclusively so. This theme would also be focalized by sociology, anthropology, and social psychology, fields concerned with the cultural change and with the modification of attitudes and values, questions which are especially relevant to the philosophy of development. It would be focalized by political science, a field concerned with the decisions which involve development, by education, and so forth. In this way, the themes which characterize a totality will never be approached rigidly. It would indeed be a pity if the themes, after being investigated in the richness of their interpretation with other aspects of reality, were subsequently to be handled in such a way as to sacrifice their richness and hence their force to the strictures of specialities. Once the thematic demarcation is completed, each specialist presents to the interdisciplinary team a project for the breakdown of his theme. In breaking down the theme, the specialist looks for the fundamental nuclei which, comprising learning units and establishing a sequence, give a general view of the theme. As each specific project is discussed, the other specialists make suggestions. These may be incorporated into the project and/or may be included in the brief essays to be written on the theme. These essays, to which bibliographic suggestions are annexed, are valuable aids in training the teacher students who will work in the culture circles. During this effort to break down the meaningful thematics, the team will recognize the need to include some fundamental themes which were not directly suggested by the people during the preceding investigation. The introduction of these themes has proved to be necessary and also corresponds to the dialogical character of education. If educational programming is dialogical, the teacher students also have the right to participate by including themes not previously suggested. I call the latter type of theme hinged themes due to their function. They may either facilitate the connection between two themes in the program unit, filling a possible gap between the two, or they may illustrate the relations between the general program content and the view of the world held by the people. Hence, one of these themes may be located at the beginning of thematic units. The anthropological concept of culture is one of these hinged themes. It clarifies the role of people in the world and with the world as transforming rather than adaptive beings. Once the breakdown of thematics is completed, there follows the stage of its codification, choosing the best channel of communication for each theme and its representation. A codification may be simple or compound. The former utilizes either the visual, pictorial or graphic, the tactile, or the auditive channel. The latter utilizes various channels. The selection of the pictorial or graphic channel depends not only on the material to be codified, but also on whether or not the individuals with whom one wishes to communicate are literate. After the thematics has been codified, the didactic material, photographs, slides, film strips, posters, reading texts, and so forth, is prepared. The team may propose some themes or aspects of some themes to outside specialists as topics for recorded interviews. Barney, do you want to come back up? You seem to be wondering, girl, are you just like Odysseus? Do you not know what ground you stand on? Again, to say what Nolan brings to it, he does get at the sense of like Odysseus wanting to go back or wanting to re-piece together what the world is after the violation of hospitality that is the Trojan horse. But there's a dissonance there or a fear there that's really manifest and like unspoken in just the right way. Like they say the law of Zeus 20 times too many, but then there's things that go unstated and are just visually present that are so tasteful.
Hit their position. Defend, squad.
Well, look at this dude. This driver's just like slowly creeping.
Stunt body.
Get moving.
how are you holding up on the ground, Jacob, while I get academic and you're fighting in the trenches for, I guess you're fighting for America? Your dudes are just like plumbing.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm fighting for America so much as I am against Soviets, you know?
Right. No, yeah, this is all violence without like nationalism. I mean, there's like a vague sense of like
there's like American flag.
defending the country, but there's no pro ethos as far as like what America is in a value sense.
Yeah.
I think too, it's funny because, or maybe not funny, but I think through negative example, this gets people thinking in shorthand what they think of when they hear the word revolution, and so
100%. They're like, it's going to be like
when
like
they hear,
January 6th, we'll walk
Zoran
in, walk out.
Maldani wants a revolution. What, is he going to throw me out of a helicopter on 6th Street? Like,
Yeah, you're like, what are you talking?
what are you talking about? Like that? I don't know.
This'll help the pain.
But also, I think of like the liberal current of like firebomb a Walmart or contrapoint spiel. Like they just want to critique power. Like, do you want to see people picking up guns and acting violently? Like,
Yeah, what do you? What's the end goal?
you're criticizing people for not firebombing the Walmart. Like, you want people publicly firebombing Walmarts and then recording it and uploading that to social media for your grand observational man in the chair judgment?
Yeah. What the fuck? Who's doing that?
See what's over there. Squad.
These are the boys. Come on.
All right, Barney has wandered off.
As she is wont to do at times. All right, fellers, let's do this.
Let us take the theme of development as an example. The team approaches two or more economists of varying schools of thought, tells them about the program, and invites them to contribute an interview on the subject in language comprehensible to the audience. If the specialists accept, an interview of 15 to 20 minutes is taped. A photograph may be taken of each specialist while he is speaking. When the taped interview is presented to the culture circle, an introductory statement indicates who each speaker is, what she or he has written, done, and doing now. Meanwhile, the speaker's photograph is projected on a screen. If, for instance, the speaker is a university professor, the introduction could include a discussion regarding what the participants think of universities and what they expect of them. The group's already been told that the recorded interview will be followed by a discussion of its contents, which function as an auditive codification. The team subsequently reports to the specialist the reaction of the participants during the discussion. This technique links intellectuals, often well-intentioned but not infrequently alienated from the reality of the people, to that reality. It also gives the people an opportunity to hear and criticize the thought of the intellectuals. Some themes or nuclei may be presented by means of brief dramatizations, containing the theme only. No solutions. The dramatization acts as a codification, as a problem-posing situation to be discussed. Again, I don't think fiction can answer reality's questions. Reality is infinitely expanding outwards all the time and complex in ways like narrative fiction can't comprehend. But it can kick off some lines of inquiry. It can raise questions.
Very
To
true.
sound like a boomer father, it really makes you think.
Really makes you think. Yes, I can save the game finally.
You found a warp pipe?
I did.
Area. Come on.
Come on, boys.
Another didactic resource, as long as it's carried out within a problem-posing rather than banking approach to education, is the reading and discussing of magazine articles, newspapers, and book chapters, beginning with passages. As in the case of the recorded interviews, the authors introduce before the group begins, and the contents are discussed afterward. Along the same lines, it is indispensable to analyze the contents of newspaper editorials following any given event. Why do different newspapers have such different interpretations of the same fact? This practice helps develop a sense of criticism, so that people react to newspapers or news broadcasts not as passive objects of the communiques directed at them, but rather as consciousness seeking to be free. With all the didactic material prepared, to which should be added small introductory manuals, the team of educators is ready to represent to the people their own thematics, in systematized and amplified form. The thematics which have come from the people return to them, not as contents to be deposited, but as problems to be solved. The first task of the basic education teachers is to present the general program of the educational campaign. The people will find themselves in this program. It will not seem strange to them, since it originated with them. The educators will also explain, based on the dialogical character of education, the presence in the program of the hinged themes and their significance. I brought up the Odyssey arguments earlier, focusing more on the culture war position of it more than the content of it, and I just want to re-get to that because I didn't finish bridging the thought, I think, which is that's the limited imagination of like what you do with a movie. In the same way, this is kind of attempting to put the binders on what you imagine revolution as, which is too violent to entertain. Only in fiction. And yet the more actual material atrocity plays out in reality, the more people freak out because it's getting too close to their fiction.
Crazy. Life imitates art, imitates life.
Things are getting crazy out there. I'm gonna jokerify. If the educators lack sufficient funds to carry out the preliminary thematic investigation as described above, they can, with a minimum knowledge of the situation, select some basic themes to serve as codifications to be investigated. Accordingly, they can begin with introductory themes and simultaneously initiate further thematic investigation. One of these basic themes, and one which I consider central and indispensable, is the anthropological concept of culture. Whether men and women are peasants or urban workers, learning to read or enrolled in a post-literacy program, the starting point of their search to know more in the instrumental meaning of the term is the debate of the concept. As they discuss the world of culture, they express their level of awareness of reality, in which various themes are implicit. Their discussion touches upon other aspects of reality, which comes to be perceived in an increasingly critical manner. These aspects, in turn, involve many other themes. Yeah, through culture, we get our aesthetic ideas. We get our maybe intellectual ideas once we start figuring out which parts of the culture pique our curiosities and make our dopamine click. And once a person realizes not just that they're receiving culture, but that culture is made and crafted and has its own biases and limitations, they can start thinking about what they think about culture and how culture makes them think.
Defend here, squad. Regroup. Go, go, go.
I see folks are talking about Python in the chat. I'm so lost.
Yeah, someone's talking about learning how to code. Oh, 3256 has learned to code and now has a warehouse job.
Oh yeah, just getting back to the top-down manifestation of like neoliberal Rust Belt reform. NAFTA. Since I was a child, NAFTA has been such a huge thing on my political radar because I come from a border town heavily affected by it. And it's kind of amazing how unaware some folks were of like how much NAFTA frustrated and alienated a lot of people to the Democrats in the 90s.
No, definitely had no idea.
I mean, NAFTA and the prison industrial complex expansion that happened with like the growth of private prisons in the 90s. Mm-hmm. To be expected from maybe the people who were comfortable with having actual slaves serve them when they lived in a certain governor's mansion.
Can't imagine who would have that.
Yeah, oh man, there was a huge like textiles bust in El Paso.
over there. Let's go, let's go.
With the experience now behind me, I can affirm that the concept of culture, discussed imaginatively in all or most of its dimensions, can provide various aspects of an educational program. In addition, after several days of dialogue with the Culture Circle participants, the educators can ask the participants directly, what other themes or subjects should we discuss besides these? As each person replies, the answer is noted down and is immediately proposed to the group as a problem. One of the group members may say, for example, I'd like to talk about nationalism. Very well, says the educator, noting down the suggestion, and adds, what does nationalism mean? Why is a discussion about nationalism of any interest to us? My experience shows that when a suggestion is posed as a problem to the group, new themes appear. If, in an area, for example, 30 culture circles meet in the same night, all the coordinators proceed in this fashion, the central team will have a rich variety of thematic material for study. The important thing, from the point of view of the libertarian education, is for the people to come to feel like masters of their thinking by discussing the thinking and views of the world explicitly or implicitly manifest in their own suggestions and those of their comrades. Because this view of education starts with the conviction that it cannot present its own program but must search for this program dialogically with the people, it serves to introduce the pedagogy of the oppressed, in the elaboration of which the oppressed must participate. This is why I want everybody to have their own YouTube channel. This is why I want everybody to have their own community theater program. This is why I want everybody to have a universal basic income to just articulate whatever little dumb art project they want. Because then we get like such a rich material mapping of the human experience, and I know that sounds flowery, but that's also through which we can kind of
Everything we love in the world is art. So,
yeah,
you know.
yeah. Like,
so, like, at the same time, like, you know, that's
this
kind of
movie
the point.
didn't need to be made. No movie needs to be made.
None of them need to be made.
None of it needs to be made. We do it because we like it. Because we're fun. It's fun.
Fun and we love it. It's
yes,
cool.
there's money involved, but I mean, if it was purely a cynical cash transaction, would people try? Like,
yeah. Dude, and there's so many stories and they're all cool. Like,
again, like Christopher Nolan's Odyssey has some real goofy thumbprints all over it from like the attempt to make it completely with IMAX cameras, but like he's trying. Like, without that gimmick, I don't know, I'm sure Christopher Nolan could just bank on being like, you know, the Batman guy, Christopher Nolan doing the Odyssey, the most popular, like, oldest story ever, and like, you know, maybe it wouldn't have the same, maybe the IMAX adds a couple $100 million to it, but it's still gonna be a commercial success, you know? He didn't have to do the completely filmed in IMAX thing.
yeah.
I see you're rounding out the map here.
I think so. I think we're on to our second location. 2 or 3 locations. That's right, Barney. You're so sweet.
We are on to chapter 4 of Pedagogy of the Oppressed as well. That was a wrap on chapter 3. I think now that we've gone through, you know, chapter 1, he was talking about the languages going to be used of oppressed and oppressor and how education is the task of the oppressed. The oppressor can't do it because the oppressor doesn't understand the conditions which are both putting down the oppressed but also imprisoning the oppressor in their own cruelty. It's the whole master-slave dialectic. The master doesn't know what labor they're missing out on. Because they're not doing it, they're depriving themselves of their own ability to experience like a fully human range of reality. And then in the second chapter, he went on to elaborate on the oppressor model of education, being the bucket model, in which students are made to recite and memorize and be receptacles. A lot of language there as far as dominant and dominator and the sort of passive submissive student-teacher program in order to dehumanize and make slave of the student subject, whereas he seeks to develop a method in which teacher teaches student, student teaches teacher. There's a reciprocal dialogue going on. And then the third chapter was about how to interface in a material sense on the ground locally from a ground up way and implement and enact a literacy program, a political program. Again, Freire did a lot of this kind of stuff. He has the resume to back this shit up. He got fucking exiled from Brazil at certain points. That's some hardcore shit, dude. Military junta wants you for just teaching people how to read?
Yeah, it's pretty insane.
Are we going to be going for helicopter rides because we're reading a book on stream, Jacob? I wonder. Is that something we can bet on Kalshi?
You know, probably.
I feel like, I don't think so, but also, I mean, I do feel like a lot of people are trying to like shame a bear for mispronouncing a word, and yeah, I mean that animal's gonna eat your fucking face.
Yeah, there's a lot of things with and how people are deciding to
3-2 put 20 on it, you know, at 3-2.
Insider trading, we'll make sure it happens.
Insider trading, yeah.
Come with me. Join taking fire. Come on. Follow me. Just move out. Heck yeah. Fall in.
It's our battery life and our time. Like, all right, we're doing good, and we will be continuing on. All right, I'm going to crack into chapter 4 while Jacob continually reasserts traditional masculine values with a gun and American warrior culture, which is crawling around, hiding, and shooting from afar. Middle managing your men to do shit. I really do like that aspect of this game, though. I kind of wish Spec Ops The Line had more men the way this does.
Yeah, it's honestly very, very fun. I just did that for all the damn it.
Because I think this is playing straight what Spec Ops The Line is playing for irony, which is like the middle manager, like war as like an excuse to do atrocity. Mm-hmm. The permission structure permitting you to just be kind of lazy, and that laziness leaving you like, fuck it, white phosphorus them because we need to get through. This seems a bit more mechanically invested, and they're actually being a challenge to the firefights as well.
Guys, stop shooting him.
You have so many more dudes, and they seem so much more prone to getting hit.
This one really feels like a lot better. One, it's like, it was fun when you would be like, because you have to convince more people. You get more charisma as you get more people. So you see like a group of 12 dudes standing around, but only 2 of them are going to be willing to actually fight with you, and the other guy's like, I'm not going with you, asshole. And you're like, fuck, man, come on. So finally now I'm to the point, I'm like, all right, we got a crew. We got a group of dudes. And
gang, you have to really appeal to that gang mentality. You have to Andrew Tate pyramid scheme that shit.
You really, really fucking need. God damn it, I don't even fucking.
Is that guy just dead?
No, he's just like in a coma. I'm just trying to find some health. You guys look real cool by the truck though. Looking real badass.
You know what? I've been seeing some reels that have been making me want to go back to Resident Evil 9 because there's some amazing shit you can do with that photo mode. And also I didn't realize you can do this, but people were using the photo mode to avoid getting scared. Because like when you go into photo mode, you can pull the camera out and like look around corners and shit.
Oh no shit. Oh
yeah.
Nice. That's funny. Honestly, I kind of appreciate that a little bit. Alright, you guys go forward. Make sure there's no other assholes trying to kill me.
Speaks to the priorities of that game, that it is the photo mode fanficification of it that's like its strongest aspect. That one, it feels most made for Cheesecake. Just the way Leon's model works. How dainty Grace is. There's something weirdly fetishistic about Resident Evil 9. And I'm a man who likes his fetishes. So.
Yeah, listen, we are kink and fetish friendly here.
What I'm saying is it feels dishonest with itself about what it wants. Or uncomfortable with itself.
Yeah, it's not.
It feels like it's taking off its clothes purely for money, I guess. And only for money. Chapter 4. This chapter, which analyzes the theories of cultural action which develop from anti-dialogical and dialogical matrices, will make frequent reference to points presented in the previous chapters, either to expand these points or to clarify new affirmations. I shall start by reaffirming that humankind, as beings of the praxis, differ from animals, which are beings of pure activity. Animals do not consider the world. They are immersed in it. In contrast, human beings emerge from the world, objectify it, and in doing so can understand it and transform it with their labor. Animals, which do not labor, live in a setting which they cannot transcend. Hence, each animal species lives in the context appropriate to it, and these contexts, while open to humans, cannot communicate among themselves. But human activity consists of action and reflection. It is praxis. It is transformation of the world. And as praxis, it requires theory to illuminate it. Human activity is theory and practice. It is reflection and action. It cannot, as I stressed in Chapter 2, be reduced to either verbalism or activism. Lenin's famous statement, "Without a revolutionary theory, there can be no revolutionary movement," means that a revolution is achieved with neither verbalism nor activism, but rather with praxis. That is, with reflection and action, directed at the structures to be transformed. The revolutionary effort to transform these structures radically cannot designate its leaders as its thinkers and the oppressed as its mere doers. If true commitment to the people, involving the transformation of the reality by which they are oppressed, requires a theory of transforming action, this theory cannot fail to assign the people a fundamental role in the transformation process. The leaders cannot treat the oppressed as mere activists to be denied the opportunity of reflection and allowed merely the illusion of acting, whereas in fact they would continue to be manipulated, and in this case by the presumed foes of manipulation. Hey guys, it's Act Blue. We don't have anything to say right now, but could you really please just give us $5? Hakeem Jeffries is gonna cave on the next thing, but we really just need like $15 maybe? Hey, this is the 50th email, just hitting you up to say, I know that everything's getting torn to shreds and we're gonna throw trans people under the bus, but can you please give us $5?
Heaven forbid we do anything we've ever said we were going to.
Hey, we know we're not releasing why, polling data that suggests Harris lost because she didn't say anything about Palestine, but can you please just $3? $3?
We'll do it this time, we swear.
I know Jamie Harrison's going to go on Blue Sky and ramble about don't come use our resources even though popular candidates are winning by the mandate of the people, but can you please give us $10 this time?
Please, would be weird.
Don't go to the DSA. What? Why are you doing that?
You're so crazy.
We're going to call you a Taoist. The leaders do bear the responsibility for coordination and at times direction, but leaders who deny praxis to the oppressed thereby invalidate their own praxis. By imposing their word on others, they falsify that word and establish a contradiction between their methods and their objectives. Most lethal fighting force, carrying out our sacred duty. If they are truly committed to liberation, their action and reflection cannot proceed without the action and reflection of others. Revolutionary praxis must stand opposed to the praxis of the dominant elites, for they are by nature antithetical. Revolutionary praxis cannot tolerate the absurd dichotomy in which the praxis of the people is merely that of following the leader's decisions, a dichotomy reflecting the prescriptive methods of the dominant elites. Revolutionary praxis is a unity, and the leaders cannot treat the oppressed as their possession. Manipulation, sloganizing, depositing, regimentation, and prescription cannot be components of revolutionary praxis, precisely because they are components of the praxis of domination. In order to dominate, the dominator has no choice but to deny true praxis to the people, deny them the right to say their own word and think their own thoughts. He and she cannot act dialogically, for to do so would mean either that they had to relinquish their power to dominate and join the cause of the oppressed, or had lost that power through miscalculation. Conversely, revolutionary leaders who do not act dialogically in their relations with the people either have retained characteristics of the dominator and are not truly revolutionary, or they're totally misguided in their conception of their role, and, prisoners of their own sectarianism, are equally non-revolutionary. They may even reach power, but the validity of any revolution resulting from anti-dialogical action is thoroughly doubtful. There's a movie theater to secure, eh? Oh, Josh says when you get the chance, would you look at the graffiti?
Oh.
It's on the wall when you spawn out the sewer. Is it this area?
Secure the movie theater.
Let's see.
Take out the power station on the minute.
Check out that.
It is absolutely essential that the oppressed participate in the revolutionary process with an increasingly critical awareness of their role as subjects of the transformation. If they are drawn into the process as ambiguous beings, partly themselves and partly the oppressors housed within them, and if they come to power still embodying that ambiguity imposed on them by the situation of oppression, it is my contention that they will merely imagine they have reached power. Their existential duality may even facilitate the rise of a sectarian climate, leading to the installation of bureaucracies which undermine the revolution. If the oppressed do not become aware of this ambiguity during the course of the revolutionary process, they may participate in that process with a spirit more revanchist than revolutionary. They may aspire to revolution as a means of domination rather than as a road to liberation. Wow, that guy's footing is pretty steady.
Yeah.
If revolutionary leaders who incarnated genuine humanism have difficulties and problems, the difficulties and problems will be far greater for a group of leaders who try, even with the best of intentions, to carry out the revolution for the people. To attempt this is equivalent to carrying out a revolution without the people, because the people are drawn into the process by the same methods and procedures used to oppress them. Again, the Eugene Debs quote, I won't lead all you socialists into a revolution because then someone will just as easily lead you all out of a revolution.
Bring it on. Let's go. Let's go.
Go.
There really is, you know, you can be cynical about the state of education, but it does hinge on a faith and a hope in the ability to teach people that I find, you know, romantic and nice.
Yeah.
And good.
Feel good.
I also think in the most darkly liberal, neoliberal capitalist way, you could read this book and take lessons away about how a corporation can better service its longtime user base and listen to the fans to make cynically made, easy cash grab shit.
Defend this area. Go, go, go.
I mean, in some ways, I think this is what the Baby Yoda dude did. I don't know how Star Wars is doing right now, though, as far as the Filoni-verse and all that shit goes.
Yeah, right. The Filoni-verse.
I mean, he's the dude who did all the Clone Wars crap and all those characters.
I'm just sick of watching him play with action figures.
Because it's so clearly his cartoon action figures in a way that doesn't even like dramatize or provide context for newcomers. They had a perfectly good thing going with The Mandalorian, and then they were like, well, now we have to talk about Boba Fett.
It was very clearly like they were too scared to do Boba Fett, so then they're like, all right, we'll do something else that's The Mandalorian. Then it went off like, fuck, let's do Boba Fett. It did so good. You're like, no, dude, you already blew your load with this one. You can't be like, well, now there's two Snickers bars. You're like, no.
There's Ahsoka and the Clone Wars and the Rebels and they're all getting live. It looks like the cartoon, but it's live action. Isn't this cool? Like, no.
Corporations are cancer. It's literally just like, can we do more? Like, oh, more?
Dialogue with the people is radically necessary to every authentic revolution. This is what makes it a revolution, as distinguished from a military coup. One does not expect dialogue from a coup, only deceit in order to achieve legitimacy, or force in order to repress. Sooner or later, a true revolution must initiate a courageous dialogue with the people. Its very legitimacy lies in that dialogue. It cannot fear the people, their expression, their effective participation in power. It must be accountable to them, must speak frankly to them of its achievements, its mistakes, its miscalculations, and its difficulties. The earlier dialogue begins, the more truly revolutionary will the movement be. The dialogue which is radically necessary to revolution corresponds to another radical need, that of women and men as beings who cannot be truly human apart from communication, for they are essentially communicative creatures. To impede communication is to reduce men to the status of things, and this is a job for oppressors, not for revolutionaries. Let me emphasize that my defense of the praxis implies no dichotomy by which this praxis could be divided into a prior stage of reflection and a subsequent stage of action. Action and reflection occur simultaneously. A critical analysis of reality may, however, reveal that a particular form of action is impossible or inappropriate at the present time. Those who through reflection perceive the infeasibility or inappropriateness of one or another form of action, which should accordingly be postponed or substituted, cannot thereby be accused of inaction. Critical reflection is also action. I previously stated that in education, the attempt of the teacher-student to understand a cognizable object is not exhausted in that object, because this act extends to other student-teachers in such a way that the cognizable object mediates their capacity for understanding. The same is true of revolutionary action. That is, the oppressed and the leaders are equally the subjects of revolutionary action, and reality serves as the medium for the transforming action of both groups. In this theory of action, one cannot speak for an actor, nor simply of actors, but rather of actors in intercommunication. This affirmation might appear to imply division, dichotomy, rupture of the revolutionary forces. In fact, it signifies exactly the opposite, their communion. This is something, I don't know how hot it is since I've left Babyland, and I'm also no longer producing for Wisecrack, so I don't keep my thumb on this pulse as much, but the phrase leftist infighting, like, my dude, as long as everybody's voting for the leftist candidate in today, in the electoralism and the overton window shifting, like, any kind of fighting between leftists is good as far as getting visibility out there.
Yeah, conflict, like just letting people know that there are discussions.
Like, this
had.
isn't violent conflict, this is discussion. Mm-hmm. It speaks more to a fear or an aversion towards conflict or a want for, like, authoritarian solidarity under a liberal wing of the capitalist party than it does, like, actual, like, dialogue considerations.
It's like the need for right wing to just be like winners losers.
Right.
Winners losers.
Right.
Winners
Right.
losers.
Right.
Winners losers. Like, no, dude. There's a bell curve of a lot.
But
of
if I
things.
admit to any aspect of my ideology potentially being flawed, wrong, or needing reinvestigation, that makes me a bottom, and I don't want to be a bottom. It's like, I thought, no, we're beyond the binary here, folks. We have to be.
It's like you are a bottom anyways, regardless of what you want to pretend to be. It's like, just do it. Just like you're being a
even
bottom.
if you are a bottom, like, you can take the social connotations of that idea away from the sexual fetishization connotations and enjoy it in a state of play without being anxious about what that means for you in a state of, like, professionalism.
Mm-hmm. Get fucked, bro.
But no, you want a fucking I need my F-150, Jacob. I need my truck bed, and you better not fucking scratch it.
Where's my really big truck?
My really big truck.
I want everyone to know I'm a really big, strong boy. What do we get out of here, boys?
Oh, what's Jaw saying? As a country, I wish we supported vocational tech as an alternate path. Yeah, Jaw. So one of my favorite things over in the El Paso Independent School District is they do have, like, a vocational tech school that, like, students could take as an elective, or they could. I'm not sure if budget cuts affected it. But I know a friend of mine taught, like, Adobe Creative Suite, kind of like just like video editing, digital media production tools to students as part of a process at that place. Like a tech school for high schoolers.
Mm-hmm. Pretty tight.
But yeah, I think through that sort of an educational program, you can also do a lot more with the history of labor, because, man, there's so much labor history just laying around to be picked up and discussed in the United States. I mean, last session we talked a bit about the Ludlow Massacre, there's Matewan, there's the Harlan County War. Mm-hmm. There's a whole lot of shit going on with the Colorado Cold Wars, there's the Battle of Blair Mountain, of course. The Porvenir Massacre. Look up what happened to the German socialists that settled Texas in the mid-1800s. Again, they got the Texas Rangers investigating ICE because some motherfuckers know how to be fascist and have been doing it for years, decades, a century.
So generations, generational bullshit.
And again, this is all stuff that is like consistent throughout our history, and why something like Civil War just didn't work for me, because that movie wants to be like, can you imagine Americans being horrible to each other? And yeah.
We have school shootings in the land of
yeah.
school shootings. Yeah, I can actually.
Weekly, yes. I don't have to. It's not a hard thing to do.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just very tone deaf. Like, what are you talking about, dude? Americans seem to not really enjoy each other's company.
This affirmation might appear to imply division, dichotomy, rupture of the revolutionary forces. In fact, it signifies exactly the opposite. Their communion. Apart from this communion, we do see dichotomy. Leaders on one side and people on the other, and a replica of the relations of oppression. Denial of communion is the revolutionary process. In the revolutionary process, avoidance of dialogue with the people under the pretext of organizing them, of strengthening revolutionary power, or of ensuring a united front, is really a fear of freedom. It is fear of, or lack of faith in the people. But if the people cannot be trusted, there's no reason for liberation. In this case, the revolution is not even carried out for the people, but by the people for the leaders. A complete self-negation. The revolution is made neither by the leaders for the people, nor by the people for the leaders, but by both acting together in unshakable solidarity. This solidarity is born only when the leaders witness it by their humble, loving, and courageous encounter with the people. Not all men and women have sufficient courage for this encounter, but when they avoid encounter, they become inflexible and treat others as mere objects. Instead of nurturing life, they kill life. Instead of searching for life, they flee from it. And these are oppressor characteristics. Some may think that to affirm dialogue, the encounter of women and men in the world in order to transform the world, is naively and subjectively idealistic. There is nothing, however, more real or concrete than people in the world and with the world, than humans with other humans, and some people against others, as oppressing and oppressed classes.
Fall in on me.
Nepo-fascists? That's just oligarchy, 3-2.
Yep.
Defend this area. Move. Stand your ground, all of you.
Quick save it.
Actually, yeah, let's go ahead and take a quick break while we're at it. It's about that time. It's 9:02 right now. Yeah, we'll be back in a quick 12 or so minutes. Change out that battery, stand up, stretch, smoke them if you got them. Barney has settled in, although it looks like the camera...
Oh, froze.
Yeah.
At least it froze on a frame over, you know?
Let's see if we can get that fixed. There's some picture-in-picture. And now it looks like we froze.
Oh, well, how about that?
What do you know?
I guess you can't win them all, folks.
Let me see something really quick. Keep on. You can keep on playing for a moment. I'm gonna see if I can get to the bottom of our camera mystery. Because there's Barney.
Let's make sure I actually quick save this.
Yes, thank you. Going for a pet on Barney?
This one.
Yeah, it seems to be one or the other on the USB 3.0 devices, which is weird because... I mean one or the other on my OBS.
Interesting.
Like it's either our camera's moving or Barney camera's moving.
Oh, one or the other at the same. Weird.
And we haven't had that issue before. All right, good to know.
Moving, sir. Fall back. Go.
Let's go, boys. No, I got year 6.
I got your 6. Jacob and I are gonna get each other 6s. I'm gonna throw up that bumper screen. See you soon, Techno Hotties and Thotties.
We love you, Technologies and Thotties.
I think we have an active Barney cam. Give her a quick pet.
You know?
Yeah. There we go. We're moving. Barney's moving. Jacob's grooving.
We're all here, you know?
Solving problems the only way America can, with guns. That's right. Welcome back to Technopoverty. We are reading through Paulo Freire's Pedagogy of the Oppressed as Jacob plays through Freedom Fighters, the 2003 piece of digital political art. Jacob, how woke is this game?
You know?
I think, have you only been shooting white guys at least?
Yeah, actually.
Okay.
And I do have black friends in this game.
Okay. So it truly is the green book of video games.
It really is.
All right,
you know?
all right. Glad to know.
It's okay, because they let you be cooler than they are.
Ah, right. You
And
just
they don't dunk on me at all, so I feel adequate.
They let you rap.
Yeah, they don't. they don't make fun of me about it.
Dear diary.
Dear diary. My cool friends.
Our Russians really white internet phrenology time. Yeah, that's right, Captain Quasar.
They lower the hoop height for me. And don't say anything.
They don't say anything, yeah.
Wow, geez, guys.
They're very polite, be that all my hip-hop knowledge is about 5 years behind the curve.
They still let me hang out at the barbecue, even though Eminem is still my favorite rapper.
Go scout.
You know? So nice, man.
Oh, I do want to say, next up on the Discord next Sunday, we'll probably be watching The Monkey, keeping in line with our summer scramble.
Fuck yeah.
I'm thinking, honestly, after the stream tonight chat, of watching Obsession. If you want to join me at the Technopoverty Theater after this stream, give me maybe like 30 minutes. We'll do a little late night screening. If you don't have any idea what the Technopoverty Theater is, it's just on our Discord. If you want info on our Discord, why don't you check out our Patreon page?
Yeah. Poke
We
around,
watch
click some
movies
things.
associated with the readings and the games we're playing as part of the program. We have a whole backlog. Check out our Letterboxd if you want to see a full history.
Yeah. Come and join us. It's a great time.
We watch such hits as Melania.
Let's go.
I Saw the TV Glow, genuinely a hit.
God, I love that movie.
Just to trace back as to why that movie's so good, why Schoenbrun's thing's so good, and why trans artwork matters even if you're a cishet normie. As we've been talking about while going through Freire's Pedagogy of the Oppressed, like the oppressor-oppressed label has certain sexual connotations to it. How you think about gender and how power plays into your sexual desires, these are all conditioned states. We are all living in some way in the midnight realm.
Oh no. Come on, boys.
Ground. You heard me. Pull out. Do it.
Get Mr. Melancholy and his Luna Juice out of your system in the same way you have to get rid of the oppressor within, as Freire puts it. You really do have like quite the squad.
Right? Me and the boys. It's a great time. Ow. Well. I'm gonna quick load. We're gonna get a quick load in, you know?
Getting a quick load in with the boys.
Me and 6 men. God, look at this ragtag crew.
I know, look at the character.
Like,
Defend this area.
let's go, boys. Let's fuck, boys.
I mean, these were the points of fascism Eco brought up in his Fascism essay too. It's just the general cult of masculinity.
Yeah, it's the visuals of just like, wow, these dudes look like they would kick ass.
And just the hammer-nail binary of like gun problem.
Yeah.
Do it.
Bullet solution.
I know, everyone's like, they're all like, it's gonna be World War II, bro, and like, I'll just find ammo on the ground and I'll just always be fucking ready for fucking everything.
Yeah.
You're just like, dude, it's not.
Wasn't there some tweet or post at some point in regards to like the next Civil War where someone was like, if the Civil War happens, do we still get to collect Social Security checks? Like that's another less I'm less harsh on Civil War for this because movies can be acts of fantasy and like kind of get work around this, but like I don't think a real Civil War would happen in America and the way contemporary infrastructure is set up, and also just the general health and energy of the country. We're a very tired people and we're all very underpaid. Like, brother, if people weren't worrying about how they were going to pay for next week's groceries already, like, they'd be fighting the Civil War. Like, there's a reason a Civil War is not happening, despite material conditions being so bad.
Yep, because not quite bad enough yet.
Yeah, and, like, there's not a localized sense of independence that would permit people to, like, in a factional sectarian way, like, rally a force against the government.
Back here, all of you. Stand your ground. Let's go.
Ain't
Let's
no
go.
way you gonna blow that power plant. We're taking out the power
Me
lines
and the
in back.
boys.
Yeah, Ja, it's all getting smashed and grabbed.
It's being sold for parts. Right in the dick, sir. Yeah, Bernie.
Authentic revolution attempts to transform the reality which begets this dehumanizing state of affairs. Those whose interests are served by that reality cannot carry out this transformation. It must be achieved by the tyrannized, with their leaders. This truth, however, must become radically consequential. That is, the leaders must incarnate it through communion with the people. In this communion, both groups grow together, and the leaders, instead of being simply self-appointed, are installed or authenticated in their praxis with the praxis of the people. Many persons, bound to a mechanistic view of reality, do not perceive the concrete situation of individual conditions their consciousness of the world, and that in turn the consciousness conditions their attitudes and their ways of dealing with reality. They think that reality can be transformed mechanistically, without posing the person's false consciousness of reality as a problem or, through revolutionary action, developing a consciousness which is less and less false. There is no historical reality which is not human. There is no history without humankind, and no history for human beings. There is only the history of humanity, made by people and, as Marx pointed out, in turn making them. It is when the majorities are denied that their right to participate in history as subjects that they become dominated and alienated. Thus, to supersede their condition as objects by the status of subjects, the objective of any true revolution, requires that the people act as well as reflect upon the reality to be transformed. It would indeed be idealistic to affirm that, by merely reflecting on oppressive reality and discovering their status as objects, persons have thereby already become subjects. But while this perception in and of itself does not mean that thinkers have become subjects, it does mean, as one of my co-investigators affirmed, that they are subjects in expectancy, an expectancy which leads them to seek and solidify their new status. On the other hand, it would be a false premise to believe that activism, which is not true action, is the road to revolution. People will be truly critical if they live in the plentitude of the praxis, that is, if their action encompasses a critical reflection which increasingly organizes their thinking and thus leads them to move from a purely naive knowledge of reality to a higher level, one which enables them to perceive the causes of the reality. If revolutionary leaders deny this right to the people, they impair their own capacity to think, or at least to think correctly. Revolutionary leaders cannot think without the people, nor for the people, but only with the people. The dominant elites, on the other hand, can and do think without the people, although they do not permit themselves the luxury of failing to think about the people in order to know them better and thus dominate them more efficiently. Consequently, any apparent dialogue or communication between the elites and the masses is really the depositing of communiques, whose contents are intended to exercise a domesticating influence. Why do the dominant elites not become debilitated when they do not think with the people? Because the latter constitute their antithesis, their very reason for existence. If the elites were to think with the people, the contradiction would be superseded and they could no longer dominate. From the point of view of the dominators in any epoch, correct thinking presupposes the non-thinking of the people. A Mr. Giddy, later president of the Royal Society, raised objections which could be matched in every country. However specious in theory the project might be of giving education to the laboring classes of the poor, it would be prejudicial to their morals and happiness. It would teach them to despise their lot in life instead of making them good servants in agricultural and other laborious employments. Instead of teaching them subordination, it would render them fractious and refractory, as was evident in the manufacturing countries. It would enable them to read seditious pamphlets, vicious books, and publications against Christianity. It would render them insolent to their superiors, and in a few years the legislature would find it necessary to direct the strong arm of power against them. What Mr. Giddy really wanted, and what the elites of today want, although they do not denounce popular education so cynically and openly, was for the people not to think. Since the Mr. Giddies of all epochs, as an oppressor class, cannot think with the people, neither can they let people think for themselves. Don't you just wish you could just unlearn theory? Oh, isn't it so torturous to just,
Just
theory.
know stuff?
I've been cursed with knowledge, and oh no, now I'm more cynical about the world. God, I wish I could just eat the steak and go back into the Matrix, or just, I don't know, rest on my Patreon money laurels.
Wouldn't be so
Oh
great.
geez, it's so awful.
What a
We've
rough
only
time.
read 130 pages of theory, and Jacob has become irrevocably woker to his detriment. Everything tastes worse because of reading this book.
It's true, everyone's gonna make fun of me and call me dumb and gay.
The same's not true, however, of revolutionary leaders. If they do not think with the people, they become devitalized. The people are their constituent matrix, not mere objects of thought. Although revolutionary leaders may also have to think about the people in order to understand them better, this thinking differs from that of the elite. For in thinking about the people in order to liberate rather than dominate them, the leaders give of themselves to the thinking of the people. One is the thinking of the master, the other is the thinking of the comrade. Domination, by its very nature, requires only a dominant pole and a dominated pole in antithetical contradiction. Revolutionary liberation, which attempts to resolve this contradiction, implies the existence not only of these poles, but also of a leadership group which emerges during this attempt. This leadership group either identifies itself with the oppressed state of the people, or it is not revolutionary. To simply think about the people, as the dominators do, without any self-giving in that thought, to fail to think with the people, is a sure way to cease being revolutionary leaders.
Check our perimeter. Go, go, go.
32, I know the steak doesn't exist. I know that when I put it in my mouth, the mouth is telling my brain that it's juicy and delicious. Oh, speaking of boomers, I picked up Samuel Moyne's Gerontocracy in America. I've been listening. He's been making the podcast rounds, Ja. I'm very curious. Let me know what you think about it. It's a book on gerontocracy, just, the old in our politics, and both our imagination around it when we think of the gerontocracy, and kind of like what's getting directed and misdirected when we scapegoat the elderly for things, but also what they are potentially liable for. The dude's been talking it up on some podcasts I'm a fan of, so it seems like it'd be a good piece of writing if you're looking for some nonfiction and you want to learn about some gerontocracy and contemporary politics.
Give it a quick load.
Yeah, Ja, like the average age for home ownership now is like 65 plus.
That's fucking insane. That is... Man, imagine the timeline where we all had housing.
Eliminate target, everybody.
In the process of oppression, the elites subsist on the living death of the oppressed and find their authentication in the vertical relationship between themselves and the latter. In the revolutionary process, there's only one way for the emerging leaders to achieve authenticity. They must die in order to be reborn through and with the oppressed. It's the death of identity thing going on here. The whole kill the oppressor within you. We're not advocating anything literal here, folks.
Yeah.
We're advocating an educational method. We can legitimately say that in the process of oppression, someone oppresses someone else. We cannot say that in the process of revolution, someone liberates someone else, nor yet that someone liberates himself, but rather that human beings in communion liberate each other. This affirmation is not meant to undervalue the importance of revolutionary leaders, but, on the contrary, to emphasize their value. What could be more important than to live and work with the oppressed, with the rejects of life, with the wretched of the earth? In this communion, the revolutionary leaders should find not only their raison d'etre, but the motive for rejoicing. By their very nature, revolutionary leaders can do what the dominant elites, by their very nature, are unable to do in authentic terms. Every approach to the oppressed by the elites as a class is couched in terms of false generosity described in Chapter 1. But the revolutionary leaders cannot be falsely generous, nor can they manipulate. Whereas the oppressor elites flourish by trampling the people underfoot, the revolutionary leaders can flourish only in communion with the people. Thus it is that the activity of the oppressor cannot be humanist, while that of the revolutionary is necessarily so. The inhumanity of the oppressors and revolutionary humanism both make use of science. But science and technology at the service of the former are used to reduce the oppressed to the status of things. At the service of the latter, they are used to promote humanization. The oppressed must become subjects of the latter process, however, lest they continue to be seen as mere objects of scientific interest. Scientific revolutionary humanism cannot, in the name of revolution, treat the oppressed as objects to be analyzed and, based on that analysis, presented with prescriptions for behavior. To do this would be to fall into one of the myths of the oppressor ideology, the absolutizing of ignorance. This myth implies the existence of someone who decrees the ignorance of someone else. The one who is doing the decreeing defines himself and the class to which he belongs as those who know or who are born to know. He thereby defines others as alien entities. The words of his own class come to be the true words, which he imposes or attempts to impose on the others, the oppressed, whose words have been stolen from them. Those who steal the words of others develop a deep doubt in the abilities of the others and consider them incompetent. Each time they say their word without hearing the word of those whom they have forbidden to speak, they grow more accustomed to power and acquire a taste for guiding, ordering, and commanding. They can no longer live without having someone to give orders to. Under these circumstances, dialogue is impossible. Jacob, how goes the guiding, ordering, and commanding, by the way?
You're pretty good, except at this very moment, because I led everyone astray.
Oh. But I thought leadership was a sign from God that you're just like the man for the job.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. That's don't take that away from me. But like, maybe.
Buddy, they didn't even do a penis inspection on you. They just trusted you when you said 13 inches.
They really did.
Scientific and humanist revolutionary leaders, on the other hand, cannot believe in the myth of the ignorance of the people. They do not have the right to doubt for a single moment that it's only a myth. They cannot believe that they, and only they, know anything, for this means to doubt the people. Although they may legitimately recognize themselves as having, due to their revolutionary consciousness, a level of revolutionary knowledge different from the level of empirical knowledge held by the people, they cannot impose themselves and their knowledge on the people. They cannot sloganize the people, but must enter into dialogue with them, so that the people's empirical knowledge of reality, nourished by the leader's critical knowledge, gradually becomes transformed into knowledge of the causes of reality. I think this is why music was such a big hit, and cinema to a secondary sense, is the aesthetic ability of like turning macro narratives into personal narratives. Especially like from the 50s through the 90s in most of the capitalist world. I don't know how cliche it is nowadays, but is The Godfather still the best movie ever, or The Shawshank Redemption for dads everywhere?
It certainly could be. Damn.
But we don't need to own things, remember? Yeah, 3-2. Just keep buying avocado toast, which you should feel morally bad for doing as well.
Right, like, if not getting to buy things and own things, why the fuck are we working? Like, it's just like, let's just take the reward out of everything. Like, then what are we doing?
Really, it's such a clearly in-your-face thing that it's almost like not seen.
Yeah.
Just what are we doing with a complete renter economy where that's literally the words being used? Like they're being quite literal with what's going on there, folks. Like just permanent, infinite rentierism.
Mm-hmm. This is evolution, bro. It's so fucking brilliant and smart. Only brilliant big business boys could have thought of this shit, you know?
Scientific and humanist revolutionary leaders, on the other hand, cannot believe in the myth of the ignorance of the people. They do not have the right to doubt for a single moment that it is only a myth. They cannot believe that they, and only they, know anything, for this means to doubt the people. Although they may legitimately recognize themselves as having, due to their revolutionary consciousness, a level of revolutionary knowledge different from the level of empirical knowledge held by the people, they cannot impose themselves and their knowledge on the people. They cannot sloganize the people, but must enter into dialogue with them, so that the people's empirical knowledge of reality, nourished by the leader's critical knowledge, gradually becomes transformed into knowledge of the causes of reality. It would be naive to expect oppressor elites to denounce the myth which absolutizes the ignorance of the people. It would be a contradiction in terms of revolutionary leaders were not to do so, and more contradictory still were they to act in accordance with that myth. The task of revolutionary leaders is to pose as problems not only this myth, but all other myths used in the oppressor elites to oppress. If instead revolutionary leaders persist in imitating the oppressor's methods of domination, the people may respond in either of two ways. In certain historical circumstances, they may become domesticated by the new contents which the leaders deposit in them. In other circumstances, they may become frightened by a word which threatens the oppressor housed within them. In neither event do they become revolutionary. In the first case, the revolution is an illusion. In the second case, an impossibility. Some well-intentioned but misguided persons suppose that since the dialogical process is prolonged, which incidentally is not true, they ought to carry out the revolution without communication, by means of communiques, and that once the revolution is won, they will then develop a thoroughly going educational effort. They further justify this procedure by saying that it's not possible to carry out education, liberating education, before taking power. I mean, I think you gotta do the education first. Like, even beyond any kind of political ideology, just like maintaining a consistent standard of language and literacy is how a culture perseveres. And I think that is something we take for granted, is this idea that words are just known and understood and everybody's going to be cursive writing 200 years from now.
Mm-hmm.
Secure the movie theater.
Considering, just take some mid-century poetry written in like middle-aged English and just see that fuck up some people, you know? Just, I'm not talking about like intentionally trying to troll people either. I'm just talking about like average sampling of a person who even like reads like, say your regular old dungeon crawler Karl stan, or someone who's just like a very like popcorny Sandersonian type reader. Give them something from the middle century written in ye old tongue and see how legible it is, and then consider that's just a couple hundred years. Like, what's the English language gonna look like in 3,000 more years, 600 more years, 200 more years? Considering the way texting and slang and just like international dialects are all melding together as a means of communication on the internet, like, it's gonna be cool. It's gonna be different.
Be real fun.
Don't freak out over that. Yeah, 3-2. K-shaped economy, like every news item you hear is extremely horrible and you're just like, okay, I really gotta get these bills though. Like,
Yeah.
Again, that imaginary treadmill of narrow purpose. Okay, I'm gonna go do a wrestling show with my friends though.
Yep.
Regroup. Do it.
Let's regroup our ways.
But I even wonder if you can have power without some semblance of education. Like, you have to have some articulate directional idea. Unless we're just going like raw violence, of course. But I'm talking about like power in like the political sense of like helming and steering an organization that can act like material will. I think even at the basis level of like a small scale operation, like you have to have an understanding of power through education before you can effectively like grow your power.
Everybody, pull out. Let's go. Let's go. 9 or 6.
He's got my 6. You hit that.
I do like the rain effects in this level.
lady.
This is like some neat like nighttime atmosphere stuff you got going on here. Damn.
Nice. Let's go, Lady Squadron.
Recon. Team.
Let's find the red.
Meme hieroglyphics, here we come. You're damn right, Jaw.
Scout. Move. Move. Move.
It is worth analyzing some fundamental points of the above assertions. These men and women, or most of them, believe in the necessity for dialogue with the people, but do not believe this dialogue is feasible prior to taking power. When they deny the possibility that the leaders can behave in a critically educational fashion before taking power, they deny the revolution's educational quality as cultural action preparing to become cultural revolution. On the other hand, they confuse cultural action with the new education to be inaugurated once power is taken. I mean, you do seem to believe in the power of your squad and are recruiting quite a huge amount of people.
Yeah, very true.
I've already affirmed that it would indeed be naive to expect the oppressor elites to carry out a liberating education. But because the revolution undeniably has an educational nature, in the sense that unless it liberates, it's not a revolution, the taking of power is only one moment, no matter how decisive in the revolutionary process. As process, the before of the revolution is located within the oppressor society and is apparent only to the revolutionary consciousness. The revolution is born as a social entity within the oppressor society. To the extent that it's a cultural action, it cannot fail to correspond to the potentialities of the social entity in which it originated. Every entity develops or is transformed within itself, through the interplay of its contradictions. External conditioners, while necessary, are effective only if they coincide with these potentialities. The newness of the revolution is generated within the old oppressive society. The taking of power constitutes only a decisive moment of the continuing revolutionary process. In a dynamic rather than static view of revolution, there is no absolute before or after, with the taking of power as the dividing line. Originating in objective conditions, revolution seeks to supersede the situation of oppression by inaugurating a society of women and men in the process of continuing liberation. The educational, dialogical quality of revolution, which makes it a cultural revolution as well, must be present in all its stages. The educational quality is one of the most effective instruments for keeping the revolution from becoming institutionalized and stratified in a counter-revolutionary bureaucracy. For counter-revolution is carried out by revolutionaries who become reactionary. You know, when you think about it, Trump's the real punk rock now, you know, Jacob?
I mean, I guess for like if you're talking edgelord punks from like the 90s.
Like just the straight neo-Nazi kind.
Yeah. You know, people you never want to be around or do anything with.
Is that how they seize power? They're just so, their aura is just that bad, no one wants to be around, so they can just walk in the room and everybody flees.
Definitely part of it, just like just such
like
a level
pure,
of evil.
pure disgusting slimeballness
Yeah.
as a feature and a function of the aesthetic. Weaponized just offense, yeah.
Stand your ground. You heard me. Find the enemy.
Do it, fellers, while I blow this shit up.
Defend here. Let's go. Regroup. Move. Move.
The revolution is born as a social entity within the oppressor society. To the extent that it's a cultural action, it cannot fail to correspond to the potentialities of the social entity in which it originated. Every entity develops or is transformed within itself through the interplay of its contradictions. External conditioners, while necessary, are effective only if they coincide with these potentialities. The newness of the revolution is generated within the old oppressive society. The taking of power constitutes only a decisive moment of the continuing revolutionary process. In a dynamic rather than static view of revolution, there is no absolute before or after, with the taking of power as the dividing line.
Back here. Get moving.
Originating in objective conditions, revolution seeks to supersede the situation of oppression by inaugurating a society of women and men in the process of continuing liberation. The educational, dialogical quality of revolution, which makes it a cultural revolution as well, must be present in all its stages. This educational quality is one of the most effective instruments for keeping the revolution from becoming institutionalized and stratified into counter-revolutionary bureaucracy. For counter-revolution is carried out by the revolutionaries who become reactionary. Were it not possible to dialogue with the people before power is taken because they have no experience with dialogue, neither would it be possible for the people to come to power, for they are equally inexperienced in the use of power. The revolutionary process is dynamic, and it is in this continuing dynamics, in the praxis of the people with revolutionary leaders, that the people and the leaders will learn both dialogue and the use of power. This is as obvious as affirming that as a person learns to swim in the water, not in the library. Dialogue with the people is neither a concession nor a gift, much less a tactic to be used for domination. Dialogue, as the encounter among men to name the world, is a fundamental precondition for their true humanization. In the words of Gaho Petrovic, a free action can only be one by which a man changes his world and himself. A positive condition of freedom is the knowledge of the limits of necessity, the awareness of human creative possibilities. The struggle for a free society is not a struggle for a free society unless through it an ever greater degree of individual freedom is created. If this view be true, the revolutionary process is eminently educational in character. Thus, the road to revolution involves openness to the people, not imperviousness to them. It involves communion with the people, not mistrust. And, as Linden pointed out, the more a revolution requires theory, the more its leaders must be with the people in order to stand against the power of oppression. Based on these general propositions, let us undertake a more lengthy analysis of the theories of anti-dialogical and dialogical action. Get him. Yeah.
Regroup. Get moving.
All right, the first theory, conquest. The first characteristic of anti-dialogical action is the necessity for conquest. The anti-dialogical individual, in his relations with others, aims at conquering them, increasingly and by every means, from the toughest to the most refined, from the most repressive to the most salacious. Paternalism. Every act of conquest implies a conqueror and someone or something which is conquered. The conqueror imposes his objectives on the vanquished and makes of them his possession. He imposes his own contours on the vanquished, who internalize this shape and become ambiguous beings housing another. From the first, the act of conquest, which reduces persons to the status of things, is necrophilic. You know what? Thinking of this whole conquest and making people property and how you're rounding up gangs of slaves to do your dirty work.
Yeah.
It's really bringing out like Thomas Jefferson in you know?
I could see
And
that.
that's sort of a pivotal piece of, I think Thomas Jefferson's a huge part of the American character still to this day.
I would.
Right down to like The Last of Us. Like, you know, Thomas Jefferson was a dude who was like, yo, everybody just gets a farm. Like, everybody's just doing their little hustle, you know? Everybody has their little t-shirt drop shipping business. And they get to bang their subjects.
It's all cool.
They can't consent, they're not human. You know, everybody gets their own little entrepreneurial fiefdom is kind of the Jeffersonian impulse.
It's what everybody wants, you know, it's an easy system that we can all get behind.
Also, the impulse that I think has kind of kept that libertarian spirit of ending the Fed and being skeptical of bankers alive. Yeah. The white man's country for control, not any other foreign alienating forces.
The white man. That's what we need. This Christian nation.
Just as anti-dialogical action is a concomitant of the real, concrete situation of oppression, dialogical action is indispensable to the revolutionary supersedence of that situation. An individual is not anti-dialogical or dialogical in the abstract, but in the world. He or she is not first anti-dialogical then oppressor, but both, simultaneously. Within an objective situation of oppression, anti-dialogue is necessary to the oppressor as a means of further oppression, not only economic, but cultural. The vanquished are dispossessed of their word, their expressiveness, their culture. Further, once a situation of oppression has been initiated, anti-dialogue becomes indispensable to its preservation. Speaking of the dispossessed, remember, we're going to be reading The Lathe of Heaven after Black Flame. We got some Ursula K. Le Guin coming up after some Gretchen Felker-Martin here on Techno-Poverty. Once we're done with the Paulo Freire, Jacob's going to continue on with the Freedom Fighters when he can. I might bust out some Walter Benjamin pending, but Pipistrello and the Cursed Yo-Yo is coming up. Mina the Hollower is on the way. I may get Silk Song sometime in the mix. I'm not sure after Lathe of Heaven where I'm going to go with the Summer Scramble. As we ease into Haunt Timber, depending on what the calendar says, we may start getting spookier. I have some Arthur Machen, some Clark Ashton Smith. I forget the author, but we have the book Night of the Hunter, which the 50s film is based on. That's also within the Summer Scramble stack. It's also under 200 pages. We're going to start maybe transitioning into the weirder, shorter books. I have This Is How You Lose the Time War by Gladstone, and I forget the other author. I know that's a weird kind of sci-fi thing. Might be worth following up the Lathe of Heaven with that one before getting into the weirder fiction. Howdy, howdy, a ghost bro. We're exorcising the ghost of the Soviets from America while getting through Paulo Freire's Pedagogy of the Oppressed. We're red dawning this bitch.
You know?
We're building coalitions. As you can see, Jacob has a diverse team of freedom fighters.
Got my lady fighters.
They are taking inventory of material conditions on the ground, developing an educational plan of action, and then enacting that educational plan on the locals. We're winning hearts and minds.
Yep. It's the only way.
In the Fed or DSA eliminates the Senate? Damn. What do you mean eliminates the Senate? Like, I could see like the DSA getting a big enough block to be more effective within like the congressional body and operating within electoralism. I don't think. Actually, no. In the Fed can happen. Like, I'm being way too like. I think in the Fed, I think the Fed's too precious a guardrail, and the people in charge will be like, hold on now, we're not going that far. Like, no, it can fuck up. Like. We're about to have a huge commodities crash, aren't we? Like, isn't the oil?
Yeah, we have like 45 days left of crude oil, and that's certainly getting any resolved.
I mean,
soon.
Honestly,
the other thing is too is like with a lot of these chemical processes, like a chemical process takes a certain amount of time. You cannot speed it up. If you turn off one factory, that factory supplies another factory, which then has to shut down, and you can turn it off really fast. You cannot turn it back on as quickly. Yeah. Like it's just. This is, it's a circulatory system, and America is a fucking blood clot. Like,
what's that thing where there's like a clot, and then the scab slips, and then it shoots through your nervous system, and then stabs you in the brain?
Oh yeah.
I think that's what's about to happen.
This is what's happening in America. In real time.
I mean, I own no capital. I'm not vested in this system, and their sense of apocalypse is for the shareholders, of which I'm not.
We've got a PS5 and a Steam Deck, so like right now, I mean, we've got all the investments we need.
The only assets we have.
Literal only.
I have some Spider-Man omnibuses.
Oh, that's true too. There we go. See, we'll be good.
But you see, the thing is, those will probably devalue faster because people will stop reading and looking at pictures and be like, why can't I press the X button and play this Spider-Man game?
True, I don't understand.
Ball back, team.
Come on, team.
Yeah, Ghost Bro, it's real dynamic in that way. I've really been enjoying watching Jacob middle manage his way through a revolution.
It's so much fun.
He gets to be the oppressor while freeing the oppressed.
Right?
This game is such a have your cake and eat it too with politics. Nothing is being said and everything's being done.
Right? It's funny too, it was like very heavy in the beginning with like the getting the story set up, and then now they're just like, I don't know, another terrorist blew something up, back to your next level. You're like, oh,
You know what?
well.
It's kind of reminding me of the Far Cry formula in a way, where you're just kind of gathering dudes and going to points and liberating the points.
Dude, I kind of wish we could have more games where I'm controlling a whole battalion.
Yeah,
it's real
yeah.
fun. Just be like, all right, you guys go there, kill that.
I kind of want to
It's
see
pissing me
this
off.
running on like an original PS2 or Xbox. Like, I want to see the shittiest minimum hardware running this thing just to see what the frame rate's like when you're all squatted up like this.
Right. It's like, how far can we push this shit?
Take this. Regroup.
Are none of you murdering this man that's right here? Y'all, come on. Let's go, ladies.
Your murder quote is down this quarter.
Stop letting him do that to people, y'all. Come on.
Why'd you join the force? Serve my community, uphold the law, spy on my
Spy
girlfriend.
my girlfriend. Spy my ex-girlfriend.
Why'd you join? Why'd you join? Uphold the law, serve my community, spy on my ex-girlfriend. I joined the squad for a sense of purpose, stave off the suicidal thoughts, and spy on my ex-girlfriend.
Be financially stable and spy on my ex-girlfriend.
You know, I need to get out of the house more. My dog was looking very worried. I needed the income, and I want to spy on my ex-girlfriend.
I think it's going to be a good thing. Fuck yeah.
Syndicate Persuasion.
Yeah, but
Persuaderton. Is that a Syndicate game in the franchise Syndicate? Am I reading that right, Ja?
Mm-hmm.
See, I guess I never just hit this sweet spot of third-person shooters, but I did play a lot of Warcraft 3,
right. I just remember,
which is how I got my squad beatings out, just like through RTSs.
Oh yeah, like I had never beat this game, but I remember I wanted to. And it was just so much fun being able to do like the first person and just like, all right, you guys go take them out because I'm annoyed with this. And it's like, oh, sick, okay. Or like flank them while I go do this other thing. Like, yes, hell yeah. All right.
Next location.
I'm gonna figure out this fucking helicopter.
It's like a Metroidvania.
It really is. Really is.
Because liberating action is dialogical in nature, dialogue cannot be posteriori to that action, but must be concomitant with it. And since liberation must be a permanent condition, dialogue becomes a continuing aspect of liberating action. The desire for conquest, or rather the necessity of conquest, is at all times present in anti-dialogical action. To this end, the oppressors attempt to destroy in the oppressed their quality as considerers of the world. Since the oppressors cannot totally achieve this destruction, they must mythicize the world. In order to present for the consideration of the oppressed and subjugated a world of deceit designed to increase their alienation and passivity, the oppressors develop a series of methods precluding any presentation of the world as a problem, and showing it rather as a fixed entity, as something given, something to which people, as mere spectators, must adapt. This gets down to the whole like cuckold anxiety of it all, and how vocal that is in our present moment. The oppressors develop a series of methods precluding any presentation of the world as a problem, and showing it rather as a fixed entity, as something given, something to which people as mere spectators must adapt. You know, even within the mythology of our cinema and our hope core optimism of something like the Fantastic Four or the Avengers, like, we're here to watch the superheroes do the job. There's not like a social realist, like participatory nature to that aspect. There's a special squad of people the government has on it. This is one of the things I really like Project Hail Mary, but there's a particular aspect to it where it's like, oh, this is a really grim universe it's positing for being such a hope core movie. Like the governmental force that forces him into space, like when you get right down to it, like there's like a scientific authoritarianism, like shadow organization that's just like running the world, alluded to in the background of Project Hail Mary. And I know that's kind of intentionally the point, like because of like how desperate the situation is and how extreme it is. But think about how that movie manufactures a scientific state of emergency that rationalizes that as an acceptable thing. And how at the same time this movie is trying to market itself as hope core, to which it does work. Like there is a saccharine sense of like sweetness to it, which honestly has less to do with any scientific realism and more to do with like the E.T. puppet style enemy mine relationship Ryan Gosling develops with his alien friend.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly, a ghost bro. Project Hail Mary's NGE Light. It is necessary for the oppressors to approach the people in order via subjugation to keep them passive. This approximation, however, does not involve being with the people or require true communication. It's accomplished by the oppressors depositing myths indispensable to the preservation of the status quo. For example, the myth that the oppressive order is a free society, the myth that all persons are free to work where they wish, that if they don't like their boss, they can leave him and look for another job. The myth that this order respects human rights and is therefore worthy of esteem. The myth that anyone who is industrious can become an entrepreneur. Worse yet, the myth that the street vendor is as much an entrepreneur as the owner of a large factory. The myth of the universal right of education, when all the Brazilian children who enter primary schools, only a tiny fraction ever reach the university. The myth of the equality of all individuals, when the question, do you know who you're talking to, is still current among us. The myth of the heroism of the oppressor classes as defenders of Western Christian civilization against materialist barbarism. The myth of the charity and generosity of the elites, when what they really do as a class is foster selective good deeds, subsequently elaborated into the myth of disinterested aid, which on the international level was severely criticized by Pope John Paul XXIII. The myth that the dominant elites, recognizing their duties, promote the advancement of the people, so that the people, in a gesture of gratitude, should accept the words of the elites and be conformed to them. The myth that rebellion is a sin against God. The myth of private property is fundamental to the personal human development so long as oppressors are the only true human beings. The myth of the industriousness of the oppressors and the laziness and dishonesty of the oppressed, as well as the myth of the natural inferiority of the latter and the superiority of the former. All these myths, and others the reader could list, the internalization of which is essential to the subjugation of the oppressed, are presented to them by well-organized propaganda and slogans via the mass communications media, as if such alienation constituted real communication. In sum, there's no oppressive reality which is not at the same time necessarily anti-dialogical, just as there is no anti-dialogue in which the oppressors do not entirely dedicate themselves to the constant conquest of the oppressed. In ancient Rome, the dominant elites spoke of the need to give bread and circuses to the people in order to soften them up and to secure their own tranquility. The dominant elites of today, like these of any epoch, continue, in a version of original sin, to need to conquer the others, with or without bread and circuses. The content and the methods of conquest vary historically. What does not vary, as long as the dominant elites exist, is the necrophilic passion to oppress. Something happened?
Yeah, the game crashed.
Whoa.
You know, just going so hard.
The myth of the American farmer discussed in politics is an independent small business owner. Yeah, it's all corporate farms. Mm-hmm. Syndicate was a cyberpunk game? Okay. The Swaderton was a beam weapon that mind-controlled NPCs to join your mob. That's awesome. The sequel Syndicate Wars was an OG PlayStation and DOS game in 1996, 30 years ago. I'm old as fuck. Freedom denied. Are we still moving? We are still moving. Is Barney still moving? Barney is still moving. We are still good. Where did you leave off?
Let's see. Charisma level 6. Let's see what-
Oh, there's like, oh, okay. It's actually like metered out that way.
Oh, thank God, yeah.
Station on the Manhattan side of the water. Power lines run parallel with the bridge and into the adjoining areas, supplying power to much of downtown. Destroying the power lines will kill the floodlights in Gotham Road.
We have the next anti-dialogical classification, which is divide and rule. This is another fundamental dimension of the theory of oppressive action, which is as old as oppression itself. As the oppressor minority subordinates and dominates the majority, it must divide it and keep it divided in order to remain in power. The minority cannot permit itself the luxury of tolerating the unification of the people, which would undoubtedly signify a serious threat to their own hegemony.
God damn it, Barney.
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 She gets stuck in the wires,
Like-
and it's like adorable, but it's also very annoying.
It's just very dumb because rather than like try to reassess the situation, it's just like, well, that didn't work. Let me try it 12 more times. And you're just like, it's still
She's
not
a
working.
little NPC. She just keeps bouncing into the wall until you move her
Yeah.
path.
And you're just like, come on. You're going to get there one day.
Accordingly, the oppressor's halt by any method, including violence, any action which even incipient fashion could awaken the oppressed to the need for unity. Concepts such as unity, organization, and struggle are immediately labeled dangerous. In fact, of course, these concepts are dangerous to the oppressors, for their realization is necessary to the actions of liberation. It is in the interest of the oppressor to weaken the oppressed still further, to isolate them, to create and deepen rifts among them. This is done by varied means, from the repressive methods of the government bureaucracy to the forms of cultural action with which they manipulate the people by giving them the impression that they are being helped. One of the characteristics of oppressive cultural action, which is almost never perceived by the dedicated but naive professionals who are involved in the emphasis on a focalized view of problems rather than on seeing them as dimensions of totality. In community development projects, the more a region or area is broken down into local communities without the study of these communities, both as totalities in themselves and as parts of another totality, the area, region, so forth, which in its turn is part of a still larger totality, the nation, as part of the continental totality, the more alienation is intensified. And the more alienated people are, the easier it is to divide them and keep them divided. These focalized forms of action, by intensifying the focalized way of life of the oppressed, especially in rural areas, hamper the oppressed from perceiving reality critically and keep them isolated from the problems of oppressed women and men in other areas. You know, I'm really gonna hate that guy because he likes different corporate icon than I do.
You mean he's a White Sox fan instead of a Red Sox fan?
You know what? Elon Musk told me the Odyssey was gonna suck, and I have to side with Elon Musk, so the Odyssey must suck.
Fuck, bro.
The same divisive effect occurs in connection with the so-called leadership training courses, which are, although carried out without any such intention by many of their organizers, in the last analysis alienating. These courses are based on the naive assumption that one can promote the community by training its leaders, as if it were the parts that promote the whole, and not the whole which, in being promoted, promotes the parts. Those members of the communities who show sufficient leadership capacities to be chosen for these courses necessarily reflect and express the aspirations of the individuals of their community. They are in harmony with the way of living and thinking about reality which characterizes their comrades, even though they reveal special abilities which give them the status of leaders. As soon as they complete the course and return to the community with resources they did not formerly possess, they either use these resources to control the submerged and dominated consciousness of their comrades, or they become strangers in their own communities, and their former leadership position is thus threatened. In order to not lose their leadership status, they will probably tend to continue manipulating the community, but in a more efficient manner. When cultural action, as a totalized and totalizing process, approaches an entire community and not merely its leaders, the opposite process occurs. Either the former leaders grow along with everyone else, or they are replaced by new leaders who emerge as a result of the new social consciousness of the community. The oppressors do not favor promoting the community as a whole, but rather selected leaders. The latter course, by preserving a state of alienation, hinders the emergence of consciousness and critical intervention into total reality. And without this critical intervention, it is always difficult to achieve the unity of the oppressed as a class. Class conflict is another concept which upsets the oppressors, since they do not wish to consider themselves an oppressive class. Unable to deny, they try as they may, the existence of social classes, they preach the need for understanding and harmony between those who buy and those who are obliged to sell their labor. However, the unconcealable antagonism which exists between the two classes makes this harmony impossible. The elites call for harmony between classes as if classes were fortuitous agglomerations of individuals curiously looking at a shop window on a Sunday afternoon. The only harmony with which it's valuable and demonstrable is that found among the oppressors themselves. Although they may diverge and upon occasion even clash over group interest, they unite immediately at the threat of the class. Similarly, the harmony of the oppressed is only possible when its members are engaged in the struggle for liberation. Only in exceptional cases is it not only possible but necessary for both classes to unite and act in harmony. But when the emergency which united them has passed, they will return to the contradiction which defines the existence and which never really disappeared. All the actions of the dominant class manifest its need to divide in order to facilitate the preservation of the oppressor state. Its interference in the unions, favoring certain representatives of the dominated classes who actually represent the oppressor, not their own comrades, its promotion of individuals who reveal leadership capacity and could signify a threat if they were not softened up in this way, its distribution of benefits to some and penalties to others, all these are ways of dividing in order to preserve the system which favors the elite. They are forms of action which exploit, directly or indirectly, one of the weak points of the oppressed, their basic insecurity. The oppressed are insecure in their duality as beings which house the oppressor. On one hand, they resist her or him. On the other hand, at a certain stage in their relationship, they are attracted by him or her. Under these circumstances, the oppressors easily obtain positive results from divisive action. In addition, the oppressed know from experience the price of not accepting an invitation offered with the purpose of preventing their unity as a class. Losing their jobs and finding their names on a blacklist signifying closed doors to other jobs is the least that can happen. Their basic insecurity is this directly linked to the enslavement of their labor, which really implies the enslavement of their person, as Bishop Split emphasized. People are fulfilled only to the extent that they create their world, which is a human world, and create it with their transforming labor. The fulfillment of humankind as human beings lies, then, in the fulfillment of the world. If for a person to be in the world of work is to be totally dependent, insecure, and permanently threatened, if their work does not belong to them, the person cannot be fulfilled. Work that is not free ceases to be fulfilling pursuit and becomes an effective means of dehumanization. Work that is not free ceases to be fulfilling pursuit and becomes an effective means of dehumanization. Every move by the oppressed towards unity points towards other actions. It means that sooner or later the oppressed will perceive their state of depersonalization and discover that as long as they are divided, they will always be easy prey for manipulation and domination. Unity and organization can enable them to change their weakness into a transforming force with which they can recreate the world and make it more human. The more human world to which they justly aspire, however, is the antithesis of the human world of the oppressors, a world which is the exclusive possession of the oppressors, who preach an impossible harmony between themselves, who dehumanize, and the oppressed, who are dehumanized. Since oppressors and oppressed are antithetical, what serves the interest of one group serves the interest of the others. Dividing in order to preserve the status quo, then, is necessarily a fundamental objective of the theory of anti-dialogical action. In addition, the dominators try to present themselves as saviors of the women and men they dehumanize and divide. This messianism, however, cannot conceal their true intention, to save themselves. They want to save their riches, their power, their way of life, the things that enable them to subjugate others. Their mistake is that men cannot save themselves, no matter how one understands salvation, either as individuals or as an oppressor class. Salvation can be achieved only with others. To the extent, however, that the elites oppress, they cannot be with the oppressed, for being against them is the essence of oppression. A psychoanalysis of oppressive action might reveal the false generosity of the oppressor, described in Chapter 1, as a dimension of the latter's sense of guilt. With this false generosity, he attempts not only to preserve an unjust and necrophilic order, but to buy peace for himself. It happens that peace cannot be bought. Peace is experienced in solidarity and loving acts, which cannot be incarnated in oppression. Hence, the Masonic element of the theory of anti-dialogical action requires and reinforces the first characteristic of this action, the necessity for conquest. Since it's necessary to divide the people in order to preserve the status quo and thereby the power of the dominators, it is essential for the oppressors to keep the oppressed from perceiving their strategy. So the former must convince the latter that they are being defended against the demonic action of marginals, rowdies, and enemies of God, for these are the epithets directed at men who lived and are living in brave pursuit of man's humanization. In order to divide and confuse the people, the destroyers call themselves builders, and accuse the true builders of being destructive. History, however, always takes it upon itself to modify these designations. Today, although the official terminology continues to call Tiradentes a conspirator, and the libertarian movement, which has led a conspiracy, the national hero is not the man who is called Tiradentes, a bandit, ordered him hanged and quartered, and had pieces of his bloody corpse strewn through the streets of the neighboring villages in his example. It is Tiradentes who is the hero. History tore up the title given to him by the elites and recognized his action for what it was. It is the men who in their own time sought unity for liberation who are the heroes, not those who use their power to divide and rule. The next section of anti-dialogical approach is manipulation, but you know what? We're going to save that for Thursday night.
Oh yeah, I think we're about to finish up this level.
And it looks like Jacob's brought his squad home safe. The boys are returning. Hopefully they all have some great moral injuries that they can sink in alcohol and 2 decades of PTSD. We read Fort Bragg Cartel, the Seth Hart book, a few months back, and I'm just thinking about how all those precious, precious boys and all those precious, precious drugs were just swallowed up by the Bush administration, you know? The boys are back in town and they all need therapy.
And they are all hopelessly addicted to opiates.
On that Afghan Kush.
Oh yeah, alright, I'm gonna... Actually, we are gonna go with this guy, fuck it. Real fast, see if we can get this last task. We're in the building for it.
You got one last run.
I got my boys. Defend it.
Hit the squad. All right, y'all. Yeah, as Jacob wraps here, we will be wrapping for the night. I'm going to hit the bumper screen once Jacob calls it, but looks like he's got a plan going. As a reminder, we'll be back Thursday with Freedom Fighters. Jacob, how are you feeling about this game in general? Like, how far do you feel you are?
You know, I honestly don't know, because I think this is the second set of levels.
Okay.
I honestly need to check, but it's really fun.
I gotta say, of all the sessions, these levels have been the most distinct.
Yeah.
Because you've kind of gone beyond just Ruined City, and like we're in a movie theater, you're in a power plant.
Yeah.
There's that cool like rainy back alley one.
I feel much better now, thank you.
Ah, damn it.
Say what you want about the lack of politics in this political game. It has like opened up a nice set of just like different little dioramas.
Yeah.
Lower? Maybe there you go.
There we go.
And you know what, gang? After we hit that bumper card, give me about 40 minutes, and if you come hang out on the Discord, I think I'm gonna watch Obsession tonight.
Yeah.
Why don't you join us for a late night spooky session at the Technopoverty Theater? Info on how to access the theater is over on our Patreon. Also though, gang, we always talk about how the two-person aspect or the guest aspect, the dialogue aspect is a part of this. Yeah. If you want to hang out with us and you have an idea for Technopoverty, I'm gonna want to vet you a little, but if you're one of the usual homies, if you're someone we know is verified chill, we're happy to have guests on, we're happy to play co-op games with you. That's another way you get onto the Discord. I know Hey Surge.
I think we did it.
As well as WizWorld. Have been on.
We did it for America.
Friend of the show, Pixel Goblins as well. I'm gonna check. Raise the volume on this cutscene before we call it a night.
We have breaking news in the war against the rebels. Earlier tonight, a rebel stronghold was successfully captured by our troops. The head of the group is one of the most prominent leaders and symbols of the underground resistance.
Nah, we don't really have any friends streaming we can raid into right now.
The Phantom
but you are the
has
Freedom
been
Phantom.
unmasked.
Totally.
His real name is Christopher Stone, a 32-year-old plumber. After a brief interrogation by our intelligence officers, the brother
I'm just a
Troy Stone
32-year-old
confessed to his
plumber.
participation in many
You're just a
crimes
me,
carried out by the rebel group. Now repentant, Troy Stone has
Not my
agreed to send a
brother.
plea to his brother to stop further terrorist activities. We take you live to a press conference at City Hall.
Tell us,
Citizens
please.
of New York, a dark chapter in your history
So, like,
is drawing to a close. Here now
Is there
the
land
brother
invasion
of the
only in
Freedom
New York?
Pact with a special plea to
I mean, I
his
guess
brother
so.
to desist from
They're like,
further
we're just
fighting.
gonna do it. We're gonna make sure that they're set. It seems like New York is the place to make the
brother and
biggest.
New York,
Splash.
New York.
Sort
It's
of
Mario.
drifting in
Mario.
crime at a young age,
What?
a lack of direction, or ideals, and playing video games all night, violent ones. The society we grew up in kind of abandoned us.
This is a subtle dig at Jack Thompson. You remember Jack Thompson, Jacob?
Chris,
My God,
for my
do
sake, and the sake of the new
Barney.
system, I beg you to stop your terrorist activities.
Video game's biggest enemy before Anita Sarkeesian.
They'll treat you
Truly.
fairly.
Other than Jeffrey
Soviet
Epstein trying to
government
bring
gives you the word of honor.
microtransactions to children.
Well, like, he's the final boss that's
Obvious
manipulating
that the
everything.
heroic
Everybody isn't
Soviet
aware.
army has
Everything
once
I
again
said was lies. They forced me, Chris. Don't believe this stinking propaganda.
Yeah, we know,
Keep fighting.
yeah.
Set us all free.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
Get your hands.
So
And
yeah,
now
it's
to
the
the weather for
USSR.
tomorrow.
Well, yeah, we're
I
in an
hear
alternate
it is
history thing.
getting
I was gonna say
colder,
Cold War
Comrade
ended
Ileana.
in the 80s, but right. This is a whole alternate
This is- they
history
kept the war
way
kept
before
going.
even that. Right.
But hell yeah. We're back in our cool little ninja tunnel.
Ninja Turtles Ninja Tunnel.
I love this little thing. Oh, and there's more and more people.
That is nice.
That is such a
That's
really
pretty cool. You're back at Firelink Shrine. You got more dudes hanging out.
Yes, man. Building up the charisma. More people are like, yeah, I'll fight with you. Like, you're like,
This
cool.
is Dark Souls for the Ed Hardy crowd.
For real. All right, we can do this. We can do this. And it's only got like rain or snow in the middle area where there's like a hole in the top of the sewer or whatever. This is so cool.
Yeah, I do. Again, the little rain effects on the earlier level were really distinct and nice.
Yeah. Also the leaves that they have going. I never really caught it because it was just like so subtle, but I was like, oh, this is actually really nice. But like these tents, like look at this. Oh, and I got my hat on now. Look how cool I look.
Wow, you look real Antifa.
I got an American flag.
Oh, okay.
So rad.
You know, if this game were made today, he'd have a Blue Lives Matter flag. No, he probably wouldn't have a Blue Lives Matter flag because the devs wouldn't be brave enough to do that.
Yeah, it's
They
true.
wouldn't want a true patriot in a game about true patriotism.
It's like
All right, gang.
Handle it.
We'll be back Thursday. It's been great hanging with y'all. Again, next movie on the Discord's probably going to be The Monkey come Sunday, but we're going to do a late night obsession viewing. So see ya at the Technopoverty Theater if you have access.
Yeah, well, it's
If
not
not,
all
see you
good news,
Thursday.
Jones.
See you when we look at
Tell
you.
him what
Take care, y'all.
We're serious.
Good night, techno hotties and thotties.
Forehead kisses.